Ready, aim, release! Anyone see my mammoth? Ready, aim, release! Anyone see my mammoth?
Test, test, test. Hello? Can people hear me? Yep. There we go. Doug's right. It's already going to be a classic. It's a throwback episode, guys. Can people hear us now? Oh, cool. Everybody can hear me. Awesome. Yep. There we go. Nobody needs Mickey. Look, he can talk to me, but he can't talk to you guys. Well, I'll just kick us off then. For those who don't know, me and Mickey both have the old Rona. That's probably the most important song of Rise of Fire news. While everybody watching, before everybody leaves, might as well go on and say that LGT tickets are on sale, and not only that, but we've had our preliminary numbers from the first 2 days, and we've sold over 50 tickets for the main event, and crazily, 30 tickets for the Friday ELO event. Which, to put into perspective, we didn't sell those numbers in the first month that tickets were on sale last time. So we are super, super pleased that the initial sales, if you haven't bought a ticket, go buy a ticket. I think that I'm actually super confident now and super excited that I think we're going to make a full 128 bracket at the LGT. And we are going to probably be the biggest tournament that's ever run.
Yes. There we go. Hey, right, cool. It should be working now anyway. Yes,
Do we have
the biggest
Mickey?
event, right? The biggest event. Turns out, if you go and do stuff for your job during the day and then don't turn that stuff off before loading up the stuff that you do for Tourney Ground, all of your inputs are set to use Zoom and not Streamlabs. So Streamlab goes, oh, I can't use anything like sound devices and stuff. They're all being used by Zoom. Intelligent Mickey.
Don't get too technical on us there, Mickey.
I know, right? It's Tourney Ground. We can't get too technical. Anyway, yes, absolute freaking. Honestly, going back a second from LGT for 2 seconds, I've been working at home today, and I forgot what working at home is like and the ridiculousness that was working at home.
I mean, I
have.
still do.
Yeah, you still
So
do, right? I've forgotten how to like. I just became a Luddite in like an hour, and like this morning I'm like, how do I even work my home computer to do work on? How does this even function? Anyway, yes, LGT, record-breaking figures for LGT, record-breaking. This is the
for
first
our
time,
own record.
the first time that LGT for A Song of Ice and Fire has sold 50 tickets on the opening weekend. Everyone who knows LGT
Yeah.
knows this is only the second time it's actually sold, but that's not the
Put
point.
put it in your diaries.
Yeah, it's record-breaking. So yeah, that's a
It's
positive.
super super pleasing. It's really really good. Not only that, but we'll come on to talk more about the LGT. I was filling the gap. I was filling the gap while Mickey couldn't talk. But there's all but effectively confirmed internationals. If you're thinking about coming internationally, it will be one of the biggest and best events. Like we may or may not make it to the 128. We may or may not be the biggest event that's ever run. It is without a doubt going to be a worthwhile event for anybody who can travel. And if you're a tiny bit skeptical right now about the travel options, etc., you can buy a flexible ticket which can be cancelled up until 2 weeks before the event. So if you're on the fence, go and buy a ticket, get in there as soon as possible, help us know that we are going to make that 128, help us get there. And all of that's without us really having super promoted it yet. This was supposed to be one of the starts of promoting it. So really,
Yeah,
really pleased that everybody last time has pretty much said, yes, absolutely going to be there again this time, because it means that we're going to go on to bigger and better things, and it's going to be awesome.
So we're technically 6.5 minutes into the actual recording and stuff. Which, by the way, more on that later. Is it already time to do a bit of a call out? And we say yes, this is this was. They went on sale on Friday. This was going to be the first promotional push, and we were supposed to have some art to show people, right?
Oh, come on, that's.
No, Scott is putting some art together for us for the LGT, just like he did last year. He's been super busy at the moment, but yeah, there will be some stuff we'll be putting out there. So if you want things like
That
information and
square
stuff,
on the screen right here that says "Always Winter" will very soon say London Grand Tournament.
Yeah, and if you want if people do like having things like posters or images they can share with their communities as basic information, that is coming down the line. So don't worry. Yeah, it'll probably be ready by next week. I'd have thought. No promises. So.
By the way, this right here is 100% free advertising space. I don't ask the community for any money or anything. If you want to send me images that I can put on the site to promote your event, then do so. I used to do it a lot more, but it's pretty much just said the LGT and the Scottish GT for the past year.
Mm-hmm.
And if people don't send me stuff, it's just going to probably flip between those two for the rest of the days.
Well, you never know. Hopefully, the likes of the bigger ones, Adepticon, Gen Con, and all those will get their own up there. That would be great. And also, obviously, you're not just those, but things like Warsaw Open, the French events, German events. Great to have those up there as well. It's all about celebrating the game, of course, and the big events going on. So, last week,
loads to talk about.
Yeah, last week we thought the week before that was busy. Now this week's busy, right? So Tuesday morning, the inaugural time for usually Spain to come away and say, "Look, guys, here's some new information." Spain were quiet. In fact, Spain really didn't deliver on their Tuesday morning welcome. So if you're Spanish, get onto Spanish Asmodee because they've been failing us the last couple of weeks now. But was it Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday morning? We had the infamous return of Zebra Rug guy, who from many moons ago, pre-COVID, gave spoilers of some box. I can't even remember what box it was.
The only Zebra.
Was it Skin Changers? Was one of the things that he revealed? I think it was.
I thought he revealed practically everything.
It might have been.
I feel like almost everything that came out, he had it before anybody else.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously he's returned and he's given us some absolute delights. So we're going to go through those. Strudels, is there a tournament size minimum limit to get stuff on the front page?
Not really. If you make a nice square image, I will put it up.
And if you want a nice square image made for you, and you think, oh look, here's some like ideas, but I'm not very good at doing it, like I will put something together as a free service for you. It no promises on it being amazing.
Mickey
but,
giving out
well, no,
giving out
in,
more free promises. As long as
I will. I'll say it. I'll say it because if anyone remembers wolves howling last year, not the first one, but I think it was the second one. I put together the images for Furioku because he said he wanted something on the site, and we
yeah.
can. I've got all the dimensions. I know what Carlo needs, so I can throw something together that looks okay. And if you've got nothing else, which reminds me, we should probably put uh yeah, we should probably put Scabman's charity event on
Yes, I've been asking for a.
there. We'll sort that out then. Anyway, right. So we'll dive in. Right.
Yeah.
The first one we're going to look at are these bad boys here, the Golden Company crossbowmen, the GCC as they're kind of like already being known as.
Bad boys.
Well, I mean,
They're bad.
No, they're not. Carlo, they're a 5+, 6+ with Iron Resolve, so they're basically a 5+ on morale with -1. Guys, let's just take a second. These are nearly better than Night's Watch crossbowmen, right? They take 1 less wound from panic. Okay, they don't have ready aim fire or ready aim release. They have Sentinel, which is powerful, right, Carlo? That's all good, isn't it? That's all good for 7 points.
Yeah. I mean,
But
I would. So they got Iron Resolve. So you're basically a 5/5, right? Not 5/6, and you take a bonus -1 wound.
They are actually.
If we're talking direct comparisons to the Night's Watch crossbowmen, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, who are their closest counterpart? You can argue the toss. Personally, I'd rather have ready and release.
Yeah.
But it's not clear cut. It's not clear absolute cut that ready aim release is definitely better than Sentinel.
Mm-hmm.
Sentinel could have some good value in terms of you being more of a support unit, less of just like your everything unit, which is what crossbows are currently fulfilling for the Night's Watch. They are your everything unit. They're your front line. They're your damage dealer. They're your support unit. They support each other. All these kind of things, right? But overall, take away the Night's Watch Tactics deck, because I think the Night's Watch Tactics deck effectively, and I'm talking about the base deck, I'm not talking about Othell specifically, easily counteracts the ability of Iron Resolve over the effect of the game if you're talking about fire that burns and things like that, and the ability to not actually fail those tests. I would say that it's a hard sell that these guys are as good as Night's Watch crossbows. And I mean as good, not point for point. And then they cost a point more. So I think that's tough. That's a tough sell. I think that they've really been hit by a neutral tax there of like, oh, we couldn't possibly allow everybody to have a unit of the equivalent strength as Night's Watch crossbows. Otherwise, everybody will use it constantly. And I think they've been very unfairly put in an 8-point bracket when I think that they would be a fine 7-point unit. Also, just to be very, very clear, I think that Night's Watch crossbows are an absolutely fine 7-point unit. They're absolutely fine. There is nothing wrong with Night's Watch crossbows. There is only a problem with Night's Watch Captain and Othell's commander cards. They are the things that are an issue. The crossbows and their base stats for 7 points are absolutely fine. They're not a problem. These guys are, in my opinion, worse and should have been 7 points. They would have been fine at 7 points.
I think the only base stat that anyone really considers something that should be looked at in the Night's Watch crossbowman category, if we are looking at one base stat, it is the morale number, which they kind of adjust with this to make them 6. I think if Night's Watch crossbowman was 6, I think people would find them more palatable, I think, but it's a combination of that 5 base and then all the other stuff as you've mentioned. And they seem to fix that with the Golden Company crossbowmen to make them 6. But then they give them Iron Resolve, pushing them back down to 5 with -1 wound, which, like, if that's what they're paying for, that point of pay is for Iron Resolve to push them from a 5/6, then my argument would be, well, why aren't Night's Watch crossbowmen 5/6 without Iron Resolve? And is Iron Resolve really worth a point on a unit like this at that base stat level?
No.
Like,
I think that they're just they're a tiny bit expensive for the sum of the abilities that they have, and the abilities, even like if you got those abilities at a good price, because you're not getting them at a good price, in my opinion. Even if you got them at a good price, they're not abilities that you'd want to pay for on a ranged unit. I don't want to pay for Iron Resolve on a ranged unit. I don't want to buy a 6-up, 5+6 up morale on these guys specifically. I don't want to buy Sentinel for like an extra point. If you gave me this or without Sentinel for 7, I'd be like, I'll have it without Sentinel for 7, please. And then if you're like, do you want me to take Iron Resolve off and you can have them for 6? I'd be like, yep, take Iron Resolve off, I'll have them for 6. Right. And this is our problem with attachments, right? Which is that if I can like remove abilities at a point of time, then, and I would nearly every time, why would I generally buy abilities at about a point of time? But generally speaking, these guys could and should have come in at 7, and I think that they would have been fine, and I don't think they would have seen loads of play. So I think that this is a really, really hard sell for me. 8 points is not... It's just not going to have enough impact on the battlefield to ever get its 8 points back.
Well, I mean, the problem you have here, and you mentioned it there with the abilities don't synergize with what the unit wants to do. It's the Thornwatch problem, right? In theory, Thornwatch are fine, except that they then cost way more points than they should because they've got a bunch of abilities that don't synergize with their role. And these have got exactly the same problem: is that they're fine, but then they have a bunch like Iron Resolve you just don't care about. Sentinel, okay, it's nice.
All these units, all these ranged units that are coming out as like ranged melee hybrids, they're just overcosted, because they don't excel at either well enough for their points cost. And you can't do both at all times. You don't get to do both.
Well, that's the other thing as well, and Jesse kind of mentions it there. The vast majority of games, Stormcrow Archers just do exactly the same thing. And you don't care about the defensive stats anyway. They have basically everything else is identical, so you're just paying 2 points more for a more dedicated unit. The Night's Watch, they've got the 2 best units in these kind of roles. They've got the Night's Watch crossbowman, which is kind of like a semi-defensive, aggressive unit, piece crossbowman unit. But also on the flip side, you've got the Ranger Hunters, who have that combined role really nailed down. So things that try to be the combined role that aren't those things, it's like you're just not as good as something that already is good at that.
Yeah, there's only 2 hybrid units that currently function: Ranger Hunters and Dothraki Veterans. And they're hybrids because they're a near dedicated melee unit that can make free shots. That's the only way it works. The only way it works is if the shot that you make can come for free.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not worth having the attack profile.
Mm-hmm. No, agreed. Mikhail seems to think these guys are really good at 7. Sentinel's a good ability, sure, but you're never going to charge with Sentinel in this case. It's a maneuver. One thing I will say is that the positive side that the GCC give to a neutral army is it goes some way to counteracting activation disadvantage, whatever you want to call it, because that Sentinel allows them to reposition towards the end of the turn after they've already gone to a position where they can go, actually, you did navigate round my flank, at least I can now pull my unit round to see you and do something about it. I do think Sentinel, rather than
only when another unit gets attacked. Why are you going to attack another unit to then allow Sentinel to trigger? That's the problem.
Exactly. That's the problem.
Sentinel, generally, people don't allow the charge. So the fact that you can use it to maneuver to get into a shot that your opponent didn't think you could do, or maybe you're going to use it to maneuver to get your rerolls because of short range or something, it's not worthless.
No.
But it's not worth a point.
No. And these guys are 8 points. I just and
Yeah, Tom Tyler says Bastard Girls are good as well. That's true. Bastard Girls can shoot actually reasonably reliably over time. So maybe I don't really consider them a hybrid unit particularly. I actually consider Bottom Bastard Girls and Spearwives as basically just a charging volley unit, right? Like I just consider them a really spike damage charge unit, but
they're a roundo. Right?
lots of people, and myself included, actually undersell the shooting potential of just 4 dice from Bastard Girls, which always give out vulnerable. Right, like that's actually just like really reliable.
It's
I mean,
not just 4 dice, right?
it's no Greyjoy archers with finger dance, but still.
But the thing is, it's not 4 points as well. It's 4 dice. It's 4 dice on 3s, which is better than a lot of the other range attacks. You know, 6 dice on 4s, which you see in the Greyjoys. So yeah, there is credence there. Yeah, the thing is, you want this unit to actually put some pressure in. Brathian Brienne, maybe. The problem is Brienne wants to be going engaged, really. She wants to be using her charge and melee attack options to push ground rather than just move up and make shots. But there is some credence, but again, you're investing more and more points into a unit that probably isn't efficient.
Yeah, you're a 9-point unit now.
And, I mean, we can't move away from the obvious problem, which is this is at 8 points, and it competes directly with Flayed Men in the neutral category. And this just does
hard sell. Like unless they're bringing out some real big boy synergies, this seems so below the curve that I couldn't possibly believe that everything else better than it is going to get nerfed, such that this becomes a good option. Because we'll come on to it, but they're changing 5% of stuff, guys.
5%.
You know what I mean? Like, unless they're changing 90% of everything, these guys aren't good value because 90% of everything has better value than these.
Lee, with an absolute burner, he would rather have Thornwatch.
Yeah, I think I would rather have Thornwatch. I actually would.
Jesus. I will say this, though. I will say this. There is possibility and there is discussion. Me and Carlo kind of mentioned it. And Golden Company are a new theme, for want of a better term, sub-faction, whatever you want to call it. There is possibility and scope for them to go down the route of like further push the
I already know what
Mickey's
saying.
They already have the unlock mechanic with people like Eddard and Arya unlocking Jaqen and things like that. And we're definitely going to get it with Qyburn unlocking Robert Strong. We're fairly sure that's going to be a thing. Can Golden Company crossbowmen and swordsmen unlock war elephants? So you pay the price for unlocking the war elephant with this unit, and then war elephants are actually quite a cost-effective unit, but you pay the tax of this rather than just being like, here's a really good unit and here's a cheap unit to unlock it. I don't know. I don't believe it.
I don't actually like that mechanic in general. Like there are certain thematic bits. There are certain. I think that they maybe have got it right with the wolves these days, ish.
Yeah.
The wolves aren't an absolute definite buy, right? Like I would run a John list and I would probably run Ghost, but I wouldn't 100% be like, first thing I put in the list is Ghost. The Stark dogs, again, if you buy the attachment, you probably buy the wolf. You've probably bought the attachment because you wanted the wolf. But like, actually, it's a very, very fine line on like this unlocks this, as to like you're trying to make the initial thing that unlocks it not to be trash tier, but that the combination together are right. Like it's so weird. Like I don't actually like it because you've got 2 stages at which you can fail. If either of them are too expensive, then the whole package is too expensive. If either of them are too cheap for what they do, then the whole package is too cheap and like too powerful. Man, no. I hope that this isn't an unlock for the elephants, although it would explain why they're so overcosted, because they're considered to be overcosted for what they then unlock. But I find it so unlikely, and I don't want that to be the case.
No, I like the idea of unlock mechanics in some cases, but would hate it for this, because the problem is that you end up looking at the elephants and going, are they worth the unlock cost or not? And they either
Yeah.
are, and you see them played all the time, or they're never worth it. And as a result, not only do you never see Golden Company crossbowmen, but you also never see the elephant as well. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
feed on, isn't it? I don't actually disagree that far from what some people are saying in chat, which is it possible that they're going down the route finally with neutrals, which we all actually agree has been a probably not a bad choice for neutral commanders in neutral factions, that the Golden Company commander or the commander related to this sub-faction gives a discount on his units.
No.
You don't think so?
Like, everybody keeps saying it because it makes sense, it's a good idea, and it would work. There is no evidence at all that they will ever do it. Like, they've shown no indication that they're at all interested in that. And I really just don't think it's going to happen. Like, it's not going to happen. It's very wishful thinking that we think that we all think that it's the solution to the neutral tax. I am so adamant that you're just hoping and praying and dreaming if you think it's going to happen suddenly with the Golden Company.
I do think there might be scope, given what they've done with Mother of Dragons, right? They kind of did it with Mother of Dragons and the Dragons. It wouldn't be the first time, but I do agree it would be a first precedent. We gotta hope, right? If we don't hope, what do? We just sit here and cry all day and say these guys are shit? Leave hope.
No, we just move on to the next unit. There's plenty of others.
There are plenty of others. Unit. That is a good point. So there's the box art. For anyone who didn't see the box art, I know we don't talk about box arts that often, and actually the one thing that they have in this game, and I think we'll all tend to agree, is box art's pretty damn good on a lot of these units. I think the box art for these guys is shite.
I was going to say, like, I was hoping you weren't about to say amazing. He's quite cool.
Yeah.
I think that his armor looks really, really good. The box art, yeah, not so much. These guys look. I assume you have. Do you have a picture of models as well?
I can find a picture of models. Yeah.
I'm not super sold on the models. I don't like. I know the mercenaries. I know they're a little bit ragtag or whatever, or like a bit different. I don't like one of the guys. He's got like a ridged helmet on. Some of the others have a hood up. Not for me. Like I like that Stormcrow mercs, Stormcrow archers, Stormcrow dervishes. They're also, all just like a mercenary company, but I feel like they tie together much better. See, I don't like the bucket helmet. I don't even know what you call it. Probably has a proper name, right?
The kettle helm with the rim.
Yeah, kettle helmet, if that's what its name is.
I think it is.
Yeah, not super sold on those models. They're all okay, but yeah, like buying two.
Of course you are.
But like.
Anyway, I have to say though, the bloke without a helmet on, I've just noticed he's front third, and he's back two here. He looks very similar to the Thornwatch sculpt.
True.
He does look very similar. Anyway,
they're also 50-50 left and right-handed.
Yeah.
Why do we keep getting left-handed models?
I mean, there are left-handed people.
1 in 10 people in the world are left-handed.
1 in 10 models should be left-handed then, Carlo. Or what they'll actually do is they'll put all of the left-handed models into one unit, like Bolt and Blackguard. For some reason, are all left-handed, which is really weird because no one else in the army is. Anyway, we'll move on. We'll move on to the other unit that came out. We're going to do things in a bit of a weird order today because it's not the order that news came out in. Because the order news came out in is not the order anyone expected things to happen in. Just to confuse everyone, right?
I'm sure it makes sense in Mickey's mind.
It does. It makes sense in my mind. Nothing else does. Highgarden pikemen were also revealed at this time, as in the guy who wrote the article and did all these stuff is the same guy. He had these as well, but for some reason he didn't show the tactic card until like Thursday or Friday, or the cards or anything for these. And this is really weird. So if you haven't seen the sculpts for these guys, I just want to touch on these because Carlo, what do you think? You've seen these sculpts. We'll get them up on screen now.
I like them.
Yeah?
people. I mean, like people have been hating on him. Okay, let me put that into a bit more perspective. I don't like units, and particularly spearmen and halberdiers, where the spear sticks out loads from the front of the tray. I actually find it really, really difficult to play in game. I find it really difficult and annoying. I'm actually fully okay with these guys looking a bit casual and standing around. Like I don't want these guys to be ranked up, pointing their spears out in front of them because it's actually just a bore like to play. So I like them. I like nearly everything Renly in terms of models, and they don't miss the mark for me. But I've heard other people are not so keen.
Shall I tell you why I don't like them? It's going to seem really, really weird, right? The poses are a little bit generic. I actually quite like the sculpting of the armor and stuff, but this is going to sound really nitpicky. They all look like old blokes.
That's true. And are they all bearded?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
They're
I mean,
all
they're not
bearded.
particularly, yeah, like Knights of Summer or whatever. But
Exactly.
yeah, okay. I hadn't thought about that bit, but yeah, whatever. Like, they're levy troops. Like everybody's got
Yeah, but
they're supposed to be the 5-point troops. Like
sure,
everybody's are the
sure.
same. They're just some fucking
But look
random
at the
guys.
pikemen.
There's some random guys you rounded up from the farm, Mickey.
But look at the captain. That's the weird bit. When you look at the captain, he's
Yeah,
like chilling,
yeah.
and he looks like a
He's
15-year-old who's just joined the
he's
army.
a young go-getter. Yeah, he's the young officer.
He's just out the academy. Is that it? Oh. Should we have a look at the stats?
Jesse's absolutely right. I don't like that nearly 100% of the unsullied pikemen are like pointing their spears in all random directions. I'm just God, can these guys just chill out? Can a couple of them just like stand at the back and point their spears upwards or something?
I will say that I do think is really dumb as well. Is if you take Grey Worm and put him next to an unsullied pikeman, there's like barely any difference.
Oh god, you can barely tell. Like actually, you'd 100% lose him in the unit. You would have no idea.
Oh, it'd do my head in. Anyway, the stats for these guys. They are. So, for those of you who don't know, I will touch briefly on the leaks, if we remember the leaks all the way back then. They are the same profile as was leaked all the way back in 2021 leaks, which was like October 2020 file that was leaked. These are exactly the same. They've not changed one iota.
In a year and a half.
Yeah, which we know
they've survived 2 edition changes.
We know that has changed, obviously, in terms of like they were probably designed with 2021 in mind, potentially. There's obviously delays in production and things like that. But, that's worth considering. They're a 5-point unit, like you said. A 5-point unit, and they come with a very respectable 4+, 7 dice, 7 dice 4. So we see that in the Karstark Spearmen for Starks. 5 movement, which Baratheons are now like absolutely going out there and they're buying all of the party celebration stuff because a 5 movement, 5 cost infantry unit is like premium. 4 armor, which is okay for Baratheons. They're like, God, that's shit. But we'll get back to that in a minute. 7 morale, probably not great. But Perseverance and Valor, the heal one on making a melee attack, is a fine ability. It's nothing wrong with that. It's great. And Coordinated Assault, which we already see on inverted commas Lance and Spearwives, so the +1 hit for each rank. I low-key think
just a quick question.
Yeah.
Is Lance literally Coordinated Assault?
Basically.
No, they have different wordings, right?
I think they're the same wording, but Lance also has Sundering. So.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, Lance is actually called Lance.
Yeah. It's not exactly the same.
Cool. I was just suddenly like, oh my god, because don't we believe that Lance is possibly changing to 2 hits per rank or something like that? Yes. And I was like, no way is this allowed to go to 2 per rank.
No, Lance is a different rule, but it has the same effect basically.
Yeah. That's respectable. That is so entirely acceptable for 5 points.
I'm gonna straight up say this. Anyone who plays Baratheons, a lot of people who play Brathian really like Warden. Me and Carlo have talked about Wardens before. I still am not 100% on the Warden train because a 4 movement infantry unit at 5 points that doesn't really have an aggressive profile at all is just such a liability in terms of controlling objectives, actually getting anything done on the board. These guys at 5 points with 5 movement and a stat line that says I'm going to come and kill you unless you deal with me, like, that is exactly what a Brathian have needed for so long. Because to put it brutally honest, these guys are better than Sentinels. Like,
yeah. Do you know what's super, super important here about these being a 5-point unit and their current profile and what they have is this is a 5-point unit that can actually kill a 4-point unit.
yes.
Like, and that is very, very important. And that's where Wardens and Guardsmen and all these other 5-point units fail because they can't kill 4-point units. So why not just bring the 4-point unit? You know, I field poor fellows, you field Wardens. You can't kill me. So I'm just like, well, I gained a point. These guys against poor fellows have a real chance. Like, they have the actual kind of charge profile, attack profile. You're like, okay, I need to deal with this. I need to react to this. I'm going to actively, not just slowly lose this fight. I'm going to get killed, and he's going to gain control of that objective, gain control of the position, gain control of the board, do whatever. I think that these guys, they're not blowing the doors down, which is good for a 5-point unit. They are right where I think that a 5-point, at least a Baratheon 5-point unit, really, really wants to be. I super am on board with them.
Yeah.
Like,
I am of the opinion that this release alone is enough to raise Baratheon overall win rate by like 2, 3, 4%. I actually genuinely think this is enough to have such an impact. I don't think Baratheon are going to be suddenly an amazing or like B tier, A tier faction with this release alone, but it gives them play into what is currently like the B tier stuff in Freefolk, Lannister, and Greyjoy, and actually gives them a competitive angle.
Okay, so Joey says that Stannis' heart burns low.
Shall I reveal the next picture then?
Yeah.
Stannis' heart does not burn low because, as it stands, they are not Renly loyalty.
There is no Renly loyalty on this card. Yeah. So, I mean, everybody assumes they gone and goofed, as always. Surely they goofed. I mean, surely they couldn't possibly not be Renly. I mean, they're wearing green and white, and they're called Highgarden.
Yeah.
But I would really love them to be not. The pikemen actually did have loyalty on his card in the past.
Yeah, it did.
And now he doesn't.
Thornwatch, they have loyalty. That's what I was just finding there. Thornwatch have loyalty. Thornwatch Sentinel has loyalty. It's a box I've never really opened.
And Joey, yeah, it is nonsense, but
I mean, there is reason to believe this is QC, right? There is reason to believe this is quality control just fucking up. What's actually super interesting is in the leaked folder, they also didn't have this. So given that it hasn't changed since the leaks, that could be another change they forgot to just add on. The text on the back didn't exist in the leaks folder, though, so the text has been added, so they clearly have looked at this. There is also another school of thought, Carlo. The other school of thought, which wasn't actually 100% a meme when we said this. Is the new update, are they removing the split loyalty from Brathians?
That is 100% a meme. You're more likely to get a Golden Company commander who reduces the cost of Golden Company units than you are to remove the split loyalty. And you're not getting a Golden Company commander that reduces the cost of Golden Company units, right?
Yeah.
You're also not getting rid of the split loyalty, as much as I really, really wish that they would. Like, I actually think that that the loyalty system in Baratheons will hold that faction back for as long as it exists. As long as it exists, Baratheons will struggle to ever be a competitive faction because they're just handicapped with a rule that nobody else has to have. It's significantly worse, but in a similar scale or like similar kind of ballpark to the handicap that free folk have of not being able to take neutrals.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That one's way more specific because they know exactly what combos they are and aren't allowing inside of them. But Stannis and Renly loyalty, they don't seem to be giving anything and they're taking away half of your options. So I think, yeah. Surely not. Surely it's a mistake. Surely it's a troll.
Surely.
But I do. This would have been a perfect, and I really wish that it was actually, a non-loyalty based unit. Like this could have filled an amazing gap as here's your wardens, here's your pikemen. They're just two non-loyalty based units, but I don't know how many super old school WoW players there are in chat, but it's back in the day when one side of the game, the Horde, had shamans, the other side had paladins. Right? They had to get rid of that mechanic because if they ever gave something to one, they felt they had to give it to the other because the player base was in absolute fucking uproar if one got something and the other one didn't. Right? So they were basically, and that's the same thing. It feels like they can't just release one Baratheon hero box. They have to release them in pairs because if they gave one to Stannis, they have to give one to Renly. If they create another 2-3 units for Stannis, they have to give 2-3 units to Renly. And they will always be pigeonholed into being this weird faction as long as it exists.
Yeah. Sorry, I've been reading Marwin's things in chat, and there's some prime memery going on. Well done, Marwin. I do agree with Soren's comment though. So you're saying there's a chance? There's a chance. I think you could probably keep Baratheon and Renly loyalty split. For example, I think characters being aligned wouldn't be a terrible idea. Like Loras is not going to align with Stannis, for example. That keeps with the theme of the game. It keeps the overall arching side of like the Renly and Stannis like camps. But I do agree with the units. The units have been like there could be one specialist unit, but not like literally half the roster is specialized stuff. It doesn't. 1 or 2 units is fine, but when we're now talking like it's now 3, 4, 5, 6 different units potentially down the line, that's an issue.
They have more specialist units on each side than they have units that they share.
Yeah.
So
well, actually,
they are two different factions that the only thing that the only way that they interact effectively is they share a deck and you can play both of those factions at a tournament at the same time. That isn't good.
No. The pikeman captain, I know we haven't talked about him. He's 1 point for bonus and courage. People were saying that he's like, oh, he's amazing. Oh, he's fantastic. Now, we've already seen the pikeman captain. He's existed in the attachment box for like donkey's years now, for when that came out. For 1 point, bonus and courage isn't a bad ability for a point, but it's the same problem Carlo mentioned earlier. You're just not going to buy it for a point. This is not new, really. It's not interesting to talk about. It's just unfortunately not worth a point where Baratheons are already starved for points otherwise.
Yeah, I'd rather just take him at 5. But you know what? 877, not the worst profile ever for a 6-point unit. But I think I'll stick at 5 with 774. Thanks.
With Renly's side and the additional 1 for healing, you probably don't need that. Bump it to a second rank because you're probably always going to be looking at getting that first rank to a second rank health pool, so you're always hitting with 7 dice anyway.
Perseverance and Valor's not nothing, but
it's a nice.
I don't believe there's any synergies that you can use with it, right? Like what Renly side already have access to is tons of ways to heal. What they're looking for is combos of when you heal, thing will happen because they can already access healing on a really, really high rate. But it's not nothing. And I think that I would have probably been like, hey, that's a good unit at 5 points if they didn't have it at all. So it's a nice little bump.
Might be interesting. Now I am looking at an attachment here, so just bear in mind that this is obviously grain of salt. But the Thornwatch Sentinel that gives the Pathfinder to ignore dangerous, hindering, and rough, and passing a test gives 1 wound back. I know you're only passing on a 7+, but actually all of a sudden, a 5 movement unit that ignores the terrain, specifically rough and hindering, and dangerous, that can charge over and do a lot of damage. At 6 points, people say like running that kind of unit when like in Sentinels or in Rose Knights is really good, but at 7-8 points it's just too much. At 6 points, with the coordinated assault profile that you get and the extra wounds, I don't think it's terrible. If you've got a point left over in your list, and you've got a bunch of 5-point units, and you think actually none of the 6-point units are worth it, I don't think that 1 point dropping a Thornwatch Sentinel in these guys is a terrible choice. But you're probably not going to have a point left over in your list build. Let's face
it. It's not trash.
Yeah,
it's not.
No,
it's not good.
Yeah. So those are the 2 units there. We've seen the box art, we've seen the profiles, we've seen the things. So we've got a bit of. It is really much a feast or famine here, isn't it? Gold Company crossbowmen. To put it bluntly, they're going in the Thornwatch box of they just probably aren't going to see play that much. And then on the flip side, we've got Highgarden pikemen, who I am going to straight up tell you now will appear at least a one-of in every single Renly Baratheon list. I personally think we're probably going to see 2 of Renly Baratheon lists. I don't believe that Baratheons can hang on the coattails of saying Wardens are great and then losing events and losing games with Wardens because, well, they're not that great.
Yep.
So yeah,
I'd agree.
Cool. So that moves us on to the next piece of news, which was not the live stream, which we'll get to in a minute because the live stream's the big one, right? No, the next piece of news was kind of came out of the blue really randomly, and was it the live stream? Was it the live stream on Wednesday? Or was that Thursday? I don't know. This is how mental this week has been, right? So the other piece of news that came out the last week was that oh no, that was Thursday. We'll do the live stream. It was the
Come
live
on,
stream.
Mickey. Just give the people something. Give them something.
The live stream. Live stream's available on YouTube. Just as it turns out, if you just type Song of Ice, ASOIAF, the Song of Ice and Fire, Cmon, it's the first video that comes up. So there you go. If you need to find it, you can watch it there. It's 44 minutes long, 44 and a half minutes long, and it's the usual contenders. We've got Helena, we've got Michael, we've got Fabio. Before we go into what was discussed, some people thought like Fabio had some weird eyeliner thing on or something like that. Like, no, that's just Fabio's like normal face. He has a scar and things like that. It's nothing weird. That's just Fabio. Move on, live with it.
And if he does, that's fine.
Yeah, and if he does, who cares? Like, yeah, Fabio's a lovely guy anyway. Anyway, back very randomly. This literally just appeared. No one was really expecting this. They announced it on the same day it was happening.
Well, it was the end of January.
It was the end of January.
I mean, it is the end of January.
It is today.
They did promise something in January. So
yeah. People have been asking about my jumper today because it's crazy, right? This is just a jumper that I usually have hanging on the back of my chair that I use if I want to be warm.
It does look like a Christmas jumper, though, Mickey.
I mean, it doesn't help. It's not actually like snowflakes. It's just the pattern looks like snowflakes. And I did get it for Christmas.
It's got Christmas jumper vibes.
Yeah. Anyway. So this random reveal stream, I'm not going to go through the whole stream. We're not going to go through all the bits and bobs they talk about. Overall, it had a similar vibe to what we saw with the previous one, which was the Halloween one, wasn't it, or one at Christmas or something? Which we all actually look back and go, from a competitive tournament side of the structures and the things that we talk about here, that was a good chat. This one that was last week was a mostly good chat. It had the right
Short and
vibe.
sweet. Short and sweet.
Yeah, it was everything that.
Bish bash bosh. 40 minutes. See you later, guys.
Yeah. But it was the same vein of the previous one we've seen, and it was a positive one. We can take positives away from that. So, hey, me and Carlo not complaining for the next half an hour at least as we go through this next set of things. Do you believe it or not? There's a question.
I believe.
I believe in God.
I'll try.
Right.
I'll try.
So we'll go through in order of not reveal necessarily that they did it in. We're going to go through in order of factions because why not? Let's start off with the first loves of the game, the Starks, the Crannogman Trackers, really tiny Crannogman Trackers. No, they didn't show points cost and they did not allude to point cost changes with any units. So we don't know any points cost. We only know the front side of the card. And the real change that they saw with the Crannogman Trackers is that Hidden Traps is changing to, instead of just one hit for each rank on action, it is now 1 plus 1 hit for each rank. Or you can make that unit suffer -1 movement until the end of that turn.
Can I just check? Is the 1 hit plus 1 for each rank? Is that an increase, or that's
yes.
what they currently have?
Yeah, it was.
It's one extra hit.
Yeah, it's 1 extra hit. It used to be.
Oh, I actually missed that. I actually thought that it already was that.
Yeah. The problem, to put it bluntly, I mean, I use traps in Free Folk, right? But the problem is that at best you were doing like 3 hits to a unit, or like 1 hit to a solo.
Sometimes 1. Yeah, hit a solo for 1.
Yeah, which it is useful. Like it has value, but like it's so hard to leverage the value. And as we know, Free Folk Trappers and Crannogman Trackers are on the cheaper end of the unit scale, some of the least used units. So Hidden Traps clearly wasn't doing enough. I like
it's minor. So at first, I was like, right, like I didn't think they'd increased it. I didn't clock that they'd increased the damage by 1. And they were like, okay, and you've got this other option of an also -1 movement instead. And I was like, wow, if that's a buff, you've really, you've really taken our advice to heart, which is like, let's do incremental changes.
Yeah.
But so at first I was like, okay, that's that's pretty, that's a very, very light touch. Now, only just found out, it turns out that it's +1 hit. So that's a bit more. But even before I found out about that, the more I thought about it, I do think that the -1 movement does have some use. And I think that it can be a bit niche. I think that it's very much specifically into combinations where you can make that even worse, right? So we're talking about, I don't know, maybe like Rob-based things where he can make a shift when your opponent charges you, right, and stuff like that. You can start to combine these into it being a really kind of almost full activation denial. What your opponent thought was a very good move suddenly doesn't do what they thought it did. And that can be very, very significant. I don't think that's going to happen very often. I think you have to really set it up. But I think when you set it up, it could actually be quite a big play. I think that it's an incredibly minor nerf. It's an incredibly minor buff to something that wasn't seeing enough play. And so I applaud the fact that it's a very small change, because I don't think that you need to make big changes. And I also applaud the fact that it's obviously a unit that is currently underperforming and needs a little bit of a performance boost.
Yeah.
I think that this altogether comes in as a good change. My initial thought was, that's really not going to change anything. But the more I think about it, maybe it does. Maybe it's enough. Give it time. Still think that they're a little bit underperforming. But you know what? Maybe.
I think that the thing is, like, a unit like this, and arguably the similar true with the Trappers as well, is that you don't want them to be a unit that's overly good, overly spammed. They need to be in a list because they're a tech choice. because the moment units like this become spammed, like usually it's because the effect is just too good. We saw that in 1.6 where trappers just killed everything and it was just dumb. Um, this is a tech choice. You could have lots of hidden traps, but you're not just going to spam somebody with them. Um, they have weaknesses in other areas. Like there is elements of a tech choice why you'd include this in your list. I do agree with Elite Teddy. They did remove the disorderlies on 1 and 2s on the charge. The big thing with that, and this is ultimately where I think the -1 move comes into it a little bit more. I'd much rather my opponent had a failed charge than disorderly, and disorderlies on like 1 extra dice is a deal. It is a deal, but it's not why you take hidden traps. Like that's the problem.
Yeah.
It's the hits with the reason
Yeah,
you didn't.
for me, that's never been a concern.
No.
You know, as long as I'm getting in, and well, you know, like disorderlies happen. Like it happens 1 in 6 anyway. Making it 2 in 6, well, you know, maybe it happens. But now, what you've done is rather than 1 in 6 of the time, i.e., that roll of a 2, you now disorderly when you wouldn't have. Now, 1 in 6 of the time, you just fail the charge entirely. If we're not into absolute auto charge distance anyway, they can't help you there. But it could be quite significant. I think that it does have some play into cavalry as well. At long range, 12 inches, you can give them -1 on their maneuver and on their charge. If cavalry like to start 11 inches away from something. Activate, maneuver 5, charge 6, know that they're auto in. That's a really nice position. It's also the distance at which it's practically hardest to not offer the cavalry any flank, right? If they're like a little bit off you, if they're within about 11 inches of 2 units. But as soon as they're within 11 inches of this unit, that's going to be a 3+ charge. And that's a really scary prospect to take on, to fail your cavalry and leave them out in the open. So,
yeah,
I think it's okay. It's okay.
Tom, we don't know any points changes regarding this unit or any of the units that they're going to discuss.
I have to assume everything they showed has not moved in points cost, except for the one specific thing where what they showed is they changed the points cost.
Yes. One thing I will say about trackers, what I like about this change, like lastly, is defensive units on movement 4. You can sit in short range now with your Crannogman bowmen and feel like you can harass a defensive unit on a point because they can't just charge you. You know, you can sit there and go, you know what, your defensive unit might have to charge and you might need a 3. And actually, all of a sudden, that's a bit crap and you might fail, and then you've pulled them off the point to try and come and deal with you. Pardon me, and they've failed to come and do that. I can see this being a very useful tech harrying choice potentially in those style of lists against those style of units. This makes wardens look like absolute chumps. So, anyway, moving on. Starks, though, positive change. We'll get through all of them, guys. We'll move on to Carlo's favourite thing in the world. Mountains Men. Tiny Mountains Men. So, Mountains Men, the only change they made to Mountains Men is the Marauder's Blades, the +1 to hit and vicious, now isn't just if the enemy has fewer ranks than you, it's if you have equal ranks, which, as a general theme, we saw it with the Free Folk Tactics deck change from initial pre-release 21 to 2021. The same rank kind of thing is probably a fine change for these guys. They were just shite for 6 points, right?
Yeah, I think that this change is, again, in the right direction. Again, it's marginal. It's definitely not too much. That's all positive things. I'd rather we moved in small incremental steps until we got where we needed to be, rather than we cranked the dials too hard and swung from, overcorrection to overcorrection. This unit was underperforming, and now it will perform better. I do think that, generally speaking, it's a big improvement in just the way that they play, the way that you utilize them to be able to get the benefits, full ranks versus full ranks. it does. You are still left with such a small incremental change. Are they enough, depending on the state of red cloaks, come the balance patch? If red cloaks don't change, big if red cloaks don't change, they're still vastly outperformed by red cloaks, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I believe and assume that red cloaks are going to change. If we're talking about really incremental changes, red cloaks might not get enough of a nerf to, like, even if red cloaks get made worse, I think that these guys are still probably not going to win that. They could have a place in Clegane-based lists. Clegane himself might get some, benefits out of the fact that commanders don't have to babysit objectives anymore. Yep. Aggressive commanders in general might have a bit more use. They almost have a place in Gregor-based lists. Overall, I don't see myself using them, but we've moved in the right direction and we haven't overcorrected. I still just don't think that they perform probably at 6 points worth. But again, I like the amount that they've changed, and I like the position they're going and the unit that they've picked to improve. I just am not convinced that it's quite enough in exactly the same way with trappers. They're still just into maybe. But that's an improvement in the game in general. If everything just goes in the right direction a little bit, then the game will get better.
I will straight up say, though, right? If I read this stat line to you, 6 points, 3+, 7 dice crit bow vicious. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it doesn't get much higher than that. Like we actually, nothing rolls 8 dice. Nothing hits on better than 3+ natively. Nothing comes with crit blow and vicious all at the same time. It's all okay. There's prey on fear there as well. Yeah, I do think that the package, I don't think that the package is overcosted anymore, technically. I still don't know if I pick it because it's still not synergistic with the Lannister playstyle, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it could be. Could go back to the days where Gregor is very popular. Gregor is fielded a lot, and we start to see Mountains Men just being a relative staple of that list. But we have to see significant nerfs to poor fellows, red cloaks, for that to ever be a thing.
I will say this, though. Going back to the change we saw, or what we saw with the Baratheon 5-point unit, right? The pikemen, right? This is a 6-point unit that I would feel fairly comfortable cleaving through 4-point units.
Mm-hmm.
And it is.
Mm-hmm.
So it is the right direction. I don't know if this is going to be too much. Crit blow vicious can be silly in certain times, so especially on a 3+. But that being said, it might not be enough, as you say, and range units and things like this really do absolutely murk House Clegane Mountains Men. Like a ranged unit that takes a rank off this, the Mountains Men all of a sudden just become super sad. 5 dice with crit blow on 4+ because you don't have anything else. You lose the +1 and the vicious, like absolute sad. It's like basically as soon as these guys get to like 2 ranks, because let's face it, most of the time you'll be charging with full. Not necessarily, of course, red cloaks panics and all that, but if you've got red cloaks, use them. But if these guys are charging units at full health, like these guys have got nothing. It's
just quickly to the rules question to Carly. He asks if the +1 to hit doubles crit blow. It does not.
No.
You must roll native 6s. Pluses and minuses to your dice rolls never change a 6 being a 6.
Is it Gregor who used to give crits on a 5?
Yes, if you were a Clegane unit, the card specifically said that you gained crit blow on a 5+.
That was a good card.
Yeah. Song has the rule that a 6 is always a success, a 1 is always a failure on single dice rolls.
Yes, a double 1 is always a failure, and a double 6
but a double 1 doesn't fail, and double 6 doesn't succeed. Which
is frustrating, but all right then. So
fine, yeah, good stuff, good, yeah. Have to see the whole picture. you know, as things stand, I'm not using them. I'm using red cloaks. But you know what? Yeah, you've picked a unit that's underperforming, underutilized, underpicked. You've made it a little bit better. You haven't overcorrected. Good stuff. Cool.
Second thumbs up of the day from the leak stream or the reveal stream. So then we've got Night's Watch Trackers, and anyone who's watching live on our on the video on the YouTube will see the card. If you're listening to the podcast, more on that later. At home, and you don't have the picture in front of you, you can't see it because that's not how podcasts work. But what I can say to you is that Ranger Trackers have gone completely unchanged on one side of the card, which is their stat side. And what they did was they took 7-point Ranger Trackers and they made them 6 points with no other changes. There's a good side. There's a good side, right? The good thing is that Ranger Trackers are underused, generally considered like probably the worst of the 7-point unit options that Night's Watch have. It's given Night's Watch a unit that isn't 7 points, so they can actually list build now with something that's not either conscripts, scorpions, or 7-point units, or stone throwers. So that's good. But they didn't change it at all. Like,
yeah. So this one makes me quite nervous, right? I tell you what's super interesting, actually. If you listen to what they said, I mean, I know maybe it's a live stream. We say stuff. Sometimes you think maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
But they said, or they phrased the 1-point change as a small inconsequential change. Whereas the biggest, most consequential change you can make to any unit in the entire game is what point category it's in.
Yeah.
Like, nothing matters more than whether you're a 4-point unit or a 5-point unit. Less so at the 6 and 7. But still, that is about the most important set of stats you can have is how much you cost. That they phrased it as like they just seemed, they were like, you know, they're like, oh yeah, like this unit's exactly the same. Like all we did was this really small thing of moving them to 6 points. And I'm like, that's how you turn things from being the worst thing in the game to the best thing in the game, by changing their points value by 1 point.
Yeah.
Take poor fellows and make them 5 points, and I'm never using them again.
Yeah, probably not.
Now, I am nervous about this one. Not because this unit is too good. I'm not actually hugely scared that this unit is too good at 6 points. Though I am nervous about Cold Hands Attachment and things like that coming back as like a really nasty set of things, right? But like, to be honest, they don't combo that well with other stuff. They have the problem of being like a hybrid unit that kind of pays a bit too much for it, or used to at 7 points. Maybe now it doesn't at 6. I think you get a lot of package, a lot of value for 6 points. I don't think that they're necessarily undercosted, though I'd say that they probably are a bit undercosted, but not by comparison to a lot of other busted Night's Watch stuff. What really makes me nervous is that they looked at the Night's Watch roster and they said, Ranger Trackers aren't getting used, they need to be buffed. Rather than looking at the Night's Watch roster and saying, Ranger Trackers aren't being used, it's probably because almost every other 7-point unit that they have access to is too good. Which I believe is the reality. Swarm Brothers, generally speaking, aren't taken very often, aren't that competitive, aren't that strong. Any other faction would die to have Swarm Brothers in their roster at 7 points. And that's even without Night's Watch access to their vows most of the time. Same with veterans. Baratheons would kill for 7-point veterans to replace any of their trash tier 7-point options of King's Men, Queen's Men, Rose Knights, all these kind of things. You would give anything to swap that out, right?
Yeah.
So I'm nervous that what they think the problem was why Ranger Trackers weren't getting used is because Ranger Trackers weren't good enough. Not because every other option that the Night's Watch have is over the curve. And a points change is the quickest way to get yourself from way under the curve to way over the curve, because the value that you have to bring at 6 points is way different to the value that you have to bring at 7. So this change as a whole makes me a lot more nervous about what they will do to Night's Watch as a whole than like the unit itself and its stat. Just the whole discussion suddenly took on a, oh, not a fan of that.
They did say, and I think Carly mentioned it earlier in the chat, Night's Watch are going to receive some nerfs. They did admit, I think Michael said it, Carly says it there again in chat, that Michael did say that they kind of over-tweaked Night's Watch, and they are aware. I can't remember the exact wording he used, but he did say that, you know, we know that there's, you know, Night's Watch, we know that there's some problems or something like that. They admit that there was a problem, and they are looking at fixing it. And they have not ruled out tactics cards, by the way. Tactics cards are within scope to change. So, and they've said on previous chats as well that they acknowledge the problem. I wonder if they acknowledge the depth of the problem with Night's Watch, rather than just thinking, oh, it's Night's Watch, crossbowmen, and relentless. Like, a lot of people don't believe us when we say that there is a problem with Night's Watch as a whole, because their design ethos is too valuable across the board of what they can do. People think, you know, oh, but you know that base stat needs changing, or that base stat. Yes, there are base stats that need changing, but when you've got access to 4-point units with something like supply aid, that's a problem. When you've got access to 1-point cavalry attachments, which are far better than most people's 1-point infantry attachments that are unique, that's a problem. When you're giving a faction, you know, Sentinel Plus on a 1-point attachment, that's a problem. If you're giving factions good base stats at low costs or relatively low costs that can fulfill multiple roles, that's a problem. If you're giving them permanent buffs to their units with cards that can get played that are equivalent to commander cards in other people's faction decks, that is a problem.
Yeah. Like, Jesse says, I just said that Night's Watch crossbowmen are fine. I do actually, this is crazy, because Night's Watch crossbowmen form the biggest bad of the entire edition.
Yep.
Actually, I still believe that Night's Watch crossbowmen themselves in isolation are fine. I believe that ranger hunters are actually an issue at 7 points.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that veterans and swarm brothers are also an issue at 7 points. The thing is that they don't combine as well with Othell and Relentless the way it currently is. But if you change Relentless to no longer be a ranged attack, you still allow those things to combine with Relentless just as well as they currently do. Maybe not quite with the Ranger Hunters because they can shoot, but really what you do, you still use it for a maneuver and an auto shot, or you use it for a extra melee attack, which you'll then retreat, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It's a very, very minor loss. I think that if Relentless just loses its ranged attack, then Ranger Hunters will become the new thing that is played. That is what, like, that is, if you ask me, like, hey, here's the balance patch changes. The only thing that's changed is Relentless has now become not a ranged attack. I'm like, okay, first thing I'm going to try is John for the watch, Ranger Hunters with Captain, because I think that this is entirely underutilized and has sat just here under the surface of crossbows are better because of the Othell combo and the Relentless combo. But that is also an issue, and that is an issue because of the raw efficiency of the Ranger Hunters, the raw efficiency of Swarm Brothers, the raw efficiency of Veterans, which I all think are too high when you also say, here's a deck which lets you power up over the game. Here's attachments that generically we're going to allow to be cheaper than everybody else's because Night's Watch.
Reasons.
Yeah, because reasons. Carly, are Rangers that good because of Quickfire? Yes, Quickfire is an amazing ability combined with Swift Strike, right? You understand that its combination with Swift Strike lets you start the turn, do an attack, retreat from combat, and then shoot all in one action. And that can kill units off of just like taking the swords on the tactics board. So yeah. Anyway, it's a totally different discussion. We're talking about Ranger Trackers, but the whole thing makes me think that they maybe underestimate the amount of power that I personally believe is in Night's Watch. Right? I personally believe there is a ton of power in Night's Watch, and that's not even, as people have been saying, talking about the strength of the supply aid conscripts effect. Night's Watch actually almost like you're gonna have to change huge. You're gonna have to massively overhaul them, unless you do a big change to conscripts. They need to lose supply aid or move into an entirely different point bracket or something. Like they couldn't undercorrect conscripts in my mind. Like I'd rather they overcorrected them than they went a bit too low. That's the one thing in the game that I would like them to overcorrect rather than undercorrect.
Zamet's also right there, which is something we don't give enough credit for, but boldness and courage is a 1-point ability, according to Baratheons. It's a 1-point ability, and for some reason you also get an activation with it for 3 points, which basically values Relentless at 2 points in Night's Watch, whereas it's valued in 3 points nearly every other case. Bit of a weird one. So yes, we'll move on from Ranger Trackers, and we'll move on to obviously the best faction in the game. The next ones that were released, and it's the Thenns. The Thenns are the best thing ever to happen since sliced bread. If the sliced bread that you've got is very mouldy after a long day in the sun, Thenns have been since release, right? Thenns have always been a unit which is just kind of like, God damn it, they look amazing. Anyway, yeah, they've suffered. They've never been as defensive. Like they are the most defensive free folk unit, but because of the likes of Mance, the morale stat doesn't really matter that much at 6. So you're only really paying for the armor, and previously you had to pay an extra point for that 1 increase in armor, and you lost a lot of the aggressiveness nature of the unit. It wasn't worth it in 1.6. In 1.7, they kind of fixed it. They put it into 5-point category, and they put everything else into a 5-point category as well. And you kind of went, well, hang on. I've got all this other stuff like Spearwise and Follows a Bone at 5 points are just as good, if not better. I don't want to pay an extra point or pay for a less aggressive profile with no keywords or anything for a 4+ armor save. It's probably not worth it most of the time. Bread doesn't go moldy in the sun. Fair enough once. I'm wrong.
We don't know. In this country, it always goes moldy. We don't have sun.
Yeah, what we call the sun is like light drizzle in the UK. Anyway, so they lose Unyielding, which is a much bigger change than I think people realise. More on that in a second, of course. Taunt has changed the wording. I'm fairly sure they've changed Taunt, but it hasn't changed the effect. Like, as far as I'm aware, nothing has actually changed about Taunt, but they've changed the words around, and the ruling's still going to be it's after cavalry maneuvers. Even if they say it's not, it is going to be that way. Hashtag FAQ. But they've gained Hold the Line. So Hold the Line, when this unit activates, it's an order, target one enemy combat unit, engaged with this unit. It suffers 2 hits plus 1 for each unit, each rank, in this unit's ranks in this unit. So full health units doing 5 hits, basically for free. That's good. Like that's hidden traps level good, right? But it's from a reverse side. It's hidden traps level good on something you can control because it's the ranks you have, not ranks +1 that you have, so your opponent has, which you can't actually control in the same way. If they're on 1 rank, well, it's only 2 hits. This could be 5 hits on a 4 health unit, and that's really good. So I really like Hold the Line as an ability. Before we move on to the rest of the unit, I think Baratheons should be pretty glad, because I'm fairly sure Hold the Line is coming to a Baratheon unit near you, if not more than one. So I think that
It has to.
Yeah, it really has to. And you know what? I think that's fine. Baratheon's, paying for that defensive stat for an ability to then go, you know what? When we activate, we're gonna hurt you. So that's good.
The biscuit says change taunt to long range, and we're talking. Yeah, I mean, if you do change it to long range, it is amazing. It's mostly amazing because your opponent has to keep on taking charges that they're going to fail.
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, it can't be for that reason because charges are unknown in distance. You can't force people to charge. I mean, I know you can fail if you started 6 inches away, but like generally speaking, the point is like this is an unfailable charge, and I'm going to make you take it on. Yeah, at long range, you would be able to control the battlefield too well. You'd be able to absolutely totally destroy ranged units who are the ones that have the morale profile that would usually fail. Yeah, unfortunately it can't be. Like, I do agree that taunt is still not an ability that's worth talking about at the competitive end, but to make it long range is one of those massive overcorrections.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about taunt, weren't we, last night? And I won't delve into the whole conversation, but we were actually talking about the very top end of competitive play. You could probably make it automatic, and taunt would still not see any play because there are so many ways of countering it.
Yeah.
The loss of unyielding is quite big for free folk. This is important for two reasons. Unyielding was an ability that you could coordination tactic over to another unit to kind of limit the amount of panic damage something was going to take. If you knew, like, as an example, if you've got a unit that's on quite low health, maybe he's only got 1 rank left, and your opponent is like a Lannister player, and they're opening with like a Joffrey to the swords or Joffrey to the bags, and they're trying to go, you know what, I'm going to do a red cloak zap over there and try and like kill you or do some wounds, then do this thing over here, and if I get to surge forth, I might even get to zap you again and kill you. Well, you used to be able to kind of, it's not the best play of coordination tactics, but I've done it. You can play and go, you know what, that unit's going to take less wounds this round from failed panic, so your red cloak play, for example, isn't going to be as effective. Now, that's quite unique. There are some Roose Bolton style stuff that it can come into as well, and like the spread fear style list that we see from neutrals and Lancers coming out. To some extent, Lightbringers as well, but no one cares. You never see him. Baratheons, who gives a fuck? But the thing is that was a decent ability. It was an ability that was useful. It had value defensively. Hold the line is obviously an aggressive ability. It's defensive in that you don't want to charge Thenns, but it is an aggressive ability in that you can coordination tactics onto another unit. It does not combine with the same problem, like the same order timing. So you can play coordination tactics and Warcry and play Hold the Line when you activate the unit that you've just coordination tactics onto. This is very strong. It plays around things like Hardened. That's great. It plays around things that have got decent morale that you've been struggling to remove of, but low armor. That's great. I really think Hold the Line is a very good ability that has some very, very good play. But, and there's a big but here, I really struggle to see why we're still taking Thenns as a base 5-point unit when something like Spearwives is generally just better.
That's the big assumption that Spearwives survive
this is the
change.
problem. Spearwives, do they survive the change or not? And I agree that they might not. And these might become my new go-to, right? They might become my new go-to. Honestly, I think that they have got some real interesting play. But again, we have this issue. Are they better than Followers of Bone? Do they now just push Followers of Bone out? Because they're all 5-point units as far as we know. Like, we're just competing for the same spot. And eventually, one of them wins out. And at the moment, it's Spearwives, with Followers of Bone in like a second as a tech choice. I don't see Thenns making the cut, or vice versa. The other stuff's going to get so affected that they do make the cut every time. I don't know. The 4+ armor's nice, but a 4+, 6+, I mean, that's not exactly a defensive unit, is it? People shred wardens at 3+.
It's a bit of a side grade. It's a very side grade. I don't. I don't know if they got any better. I think they did. I think they did. I think Hold the Line's better than Unyielding. But
yes. I like Hold the Line because it's a tech inclusion rather than Unyielding, which is so niche where you'd use it. This is going to be very, very important in things like combating hardened because you don't care anymore because you can just go, huh, yeah, you're hardened on 5+, but here's another 5 hits, take that. Work around hardened.
yeah, I mean, like,
that's great.
People are saying like, oh, I would have rather had this and this and this, this and this, this and this, whatever. Like, swap taunt for anything, and this unit is good.
Yeah. That's exactly.
Swap taunt for any ability in the whole game, and this unit just got better.
Yeah. So, as a free folk player, I am considering this. This moves into the consider category, whereas I've played Thenns, and every time I played it, was it me and you played a game, didn't we, Carlo? Where
Don't know. We play a lot of games.
Yeah, no, but I actually took Thenns.
The only time I ever remember playing against Thenns was at a tournament in Just Play, and I pushed some flayed men forward, and my opponent pushed his Thenns towards my flayed men, and then I activated, and he said taunt, and don't roll, mate. I'm going to charge you anyway. And he was like, oh, and then I charged him in the front, and I wiped him, and he was like, oh, and I was like, yeah. And I was like, so why did you want to taunt me? Because I was always going to wipe you out. And yeah, that's what I think of Thenns. That's my only memory of ever playing against Thenns in any significant way.
I think I played against you, didn't I? With my Thenns, against your Targaryens recently, and my Thenns basically walks around the board trying to chase you down because you're cavalry.
And then you taunted me, and I failed, and I went, oh, cool, yeah, I'll ride by attack instead.
Yeah, because that's an interaction.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah. And it's like, well, God, these guys are shite. Yeah. Oh well.
Side grade. Not sure.
The problem is, like I
didn't think that they were super weak before. Like they're not the thing getting fielded. But you know what? Like they didn't need a big buff. Maybe it's a buff. Maybe it's better. I think that it probably is better than Unyielding. So we'll see.
The problem, as is always the case, is that it's not really this unit that's the issue. It's the other units that are in its point category are just better. So it's the competition it's up against. Shame, because they're still lovely models, and I am going to play them eventually, probably in an event. Maybe. Probably never. Right. Should we move on to the next unit? And by unit, I have to say unit because I can't say faction. Mummers.
Mummers.
Bloody Mummers have been revealed to be changing. Let's see, Carlo. Did you watch the live thing, by the way?
I did, yeah.
You did? Right, cool. Right. So how are Mummers changing then?
They hit on a 3+. Yeah, they hit on a 3+. That's it. 100. That's all their changes.
Yep.
It's a solid change.
Yeah.
I think it's good. Yeah. It's not too much. Still going to get shot to absolute shit with a 5+, 7+ profile.
Yes.
But outside of that, they're a very annoying unit, which now can't be ignored. Plus the stealth buff of you can't just activate and pass, which I do think is tiny. Like I do actually think it's tiny because unless they're changing retreat, I'm just going to change it for a retreat. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, I don't buy that one. I don't buy that side of it loads, but corner case, that could be a thing. They have Counter-Strike and Disrupt. That means anybody engaged with them doesn't really want to attack them. Melee attacking this unit is a bad time. Melee getting attacked by this unit is a bit of a bad time. So, yeah, it's absolutely fine at 6 points now. Yeah.
I
gonna get shot.
Yeah, I actually think they're a melee unit that, whereas before you could ignore them, and it actively wants you to ignore them. Like now, I feel like you actually can't ignore them because if you don't ignore them, they'll actually probably kill you. You know, and that's good.
With Brawn could be good. That's
Maybe
7 points. I don't know if you're 7. Like,
in
yeah,
neutrals, I think that's fine.
yeah, okay. In dedicated neutrals, yeah.
Yeah,
Other
I think-
factions should be able to find better things to spend 7 points on, but
yeah.
yeah, okay.
Question, Carlo, because it is neutrals. Is this enough to make neutrals a faction?
No, I mean it doesn't make mummers like as a sub faction worth playing for a start, because I mean it's still just them and Zorses.
Oh god!
Like
Don't remind me of Zorses. The pain that was Zorses.
them Zorses and Vargo, awesome, great, what a faction. Ugh. Well, yeah, they're a little tweak. Yeah, it's about the right tweak. Nice, you've tried the right thing. We'll see. I'm not going to start fielding them in all my lists. I still think that you probably want to. I don't know. Maybe Starks. Starks seem to find it. Starks seem to have the other kind of disrupt abilities that aren't called disrupt, right? Like agile or
Water Dancer from
yeah, Sirio.
Sirio.
There's also
-1.
distract. Distract is another ability, right? The Greyjoy Trappers have that, right? Ooh, imagine Asher Greyjoy Trappers.
No,
plus
they've got disrupt. They've got disrupt.
Do they have disrupt? Don't they have? I thought they had an ability where everybody engaged with them. Somebody used to have that ability, or does
That's Greywind.
Greywind have that ability? I thought the Trappers had that
just
too.
has disrupt. We're just gonna have a moment to. By the way, check out the build, guys. It's great. We're just gonna have a moment checking out some stuff. Greywind is disrupt, so it's the same ability, and I'm pretty sure the Grey Worm is Grey Worm. Sorry, Greyjoy Trappers is also disrupt. Yeah. Howland NCU has the
Howland NCU
gives you a -1.
Gives the attacking unit a -1.
Yes.
Yeah, that and Sirio. Yeah, so you know what? Maybe Starks will field them. If they are, could be a bit of a nightmare for anybody that doesn't have something to shoot them with. And yeah, sure.
Yeah. Sure. We'll live with that. Sure. Cool. We'll move on to a real faction then now. So we will go for best faction in the game according to nobody ever, Baratheons. Nah, Baratheons are fine, right? What they need is champions of the stag to give out a vulnerable token if they start an attack engaged with the enemy and didn't charge that turn.
Yeah, I mean, big doubt that this is enough. But okay, again, props that you've taken an underperformer.
Yep.
You've decided what you think its role should be, but nobody else thinks that its role should be that. And you have buffed it in that role by a amount which will not overcorrect. Yeah, give yourself a clap for that part. I still think they're going to be not used, but not the worst change.
I mean, it is a buff.
Not the worst.
Right, it is a buff.
It's a buff.
Right?
It's a buff.
That's important to say that it is a buff. I'm just going to take us on a quick story time, memory lane moment, and I'm going to go to the Baratheon Tactics deck, and I'm going to scroll down in the Baratheon Tactics deck, and I'm going to look at Sustained Assault, which says that if you began the turn engaged with the defender, it rolls its highest dice value. If the defender has more remaining ranks than the attacker, the defender also becomes vulnerable. This is already playable on Champions of the Stag against high health units, and it gives out the same token.
And I discard that card every time I receive it.
Yeah.
Because it's worthless.
And this has another ability. You attack at max ranks, potentially, if your champions are on 1 rank. They just gave Sustained Assault to Champions of Stag, which thematically actually I think makes sense. I don't think the change is bad. This is the thing, I think the change is good.
It's just not enough.
It's just like, it's shit. Yeah.
It's not. It's yeah. I mean, come on.
Like,
They're ever since 1.5 or whenever it was, 1.4.
1.6, 1.5.
They have been terrified of the concept of 2+ cavalry dominating the game.
Yeah.
And in some ways they should be, but this isn't it. So, and if you're so terrified of 2+ cavalry dominating the game, make them fucking 3+.
Yeah.
And let them have all the things that the other 3+ cavalry have. Like, a good charge, good maneuverability, good threat range, all those things, right? Like, just let them have those things, because the 2+ is not worth as much as they think it is.
I mean, there is a chance.
And even back then, flayed men, actually 2+ flayed men didn't dominate the game. It was all just hearsay around a couple of
lists.
like a couple of tournament results and a couple of people talking about the fact that they were unable to kill them. But it's the same kind of hearsay around, like, oh, Renly Rose Knights dominate the game. It's like, no, that's just like new players don't know how to kill it, therefore it wins. And it doesn't take any skill. You just push it up the board there, start grinding, and you win. Same thing with this unit. If you think that this unit is too good, sorry, but I am going to absolutely flat out offend you here. If you think this unit's too good, you just don't play at a very high level, because it's only too good in just like a walk forward and throw your dice kind of play style, rather than a tactical positioning game.
I mean, in theory, it's a cavalry unit. It should be really good at it, but it's 4 movement. Terrible. It doesn't have an aggressive stat profile any better than anything else. Terrible. It's got 6 morale. Awful for a defensive unit. Just remember, guys, these guys are plated in 2+ armor, and they are still more scared of your generic bloke than a Night's Watch crossbowman, who's like, got someone in his face.
I mean, are we going to talk about the stealth nerf of the fact that these guys are definitely going to get hidden trapped and aggressive?
I was waiting until you brought it up.
To have 2 fucking movement.
I was waiting till you brought it up. Yeah, you can. I'm not even gonna lie. As a free folk player, I already run your grit and I already run trappers. I am 100% making a champion of the stag unit 2 movement for a round. Because fuck you. Oh look, you're traveling over a bog. You're now 1 movement. Enjoy your
have 1 inch maneuver
and a
2 inch march.
Oh, 3 inch march, because you only lose 1 inch, right?
All right, yeah, from the bog. Cool. Yeah. So you just went 4 inches on your entire activation, which is less than normal infantry. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
so
I don't see these guys catapulting themselves and Baratheons to the top of the playlist. Well, I mean, like, Baratheons are pretty high on the playlist, and these guys can actually get played in Baratheons, but like, they're one of the major reasons why Baratheons continue to do badly. But yeah, it's unfortunate.
I know
it's not enough.
We shouldn't really talk about like corner case things and stuff like that, because we like to try and be as objective as possible, look at everything. But Howard's comment in chat is absolutely brilliant. These guys suck. I had a single unit of poor fellows hold these guys and a unit of wardens up for an entire game. Yeah, and these are 8 points. We assume they're staying at 8. We don't know that they are. We think it would be weird that they would change them, because that's a massive reveal. You'd definitely say Champions of the Stag are going down to 7, and not they gain a vulnerable token as the reveal. Jesus, give someone hope. But yeah, I don't see this card, or this unit being any much better than they were. And
it's just such a small buff, and the unit is way off the pace at the moment. Yeah. The only thing that brings them into use is if we see huge nerfs to all the other options that they're up against.
The other thing as well, and I do think it is worth saying, like, you have a tactics card in the deck that does this effect, and you are now effectively nullifying half a tactics card with this unit. There are things in the game which you want to double up because they're useful, like Sentinel, and also things like distraction tactics or diversion tactics for extra movement and things like this, but they are slightly different triggers. They're used in different ways. This is just straight up like you're doubling down on something that wasn't good anyway.
Yeah.
I
Ian asks if they were 7, would I take them? I'd say yes, but I'm not spamming them. Like, I'm not like, hey, start an army, 2 units of champions of stag. I'm like, cool. Yeah, probably 1 unit. Can I afford champions of the stag? Should I still take hedge knights? Are hedge knights actually better? Do you know what I mean? Like, but yes, I would. I would take them. They are better than hedge knights.
they're a good
7.
overgrowth target, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, overgrowth unfortunately does hits based on your own ranks, so it's not that great at overgrowth target.
Hey, you're never gonna lose more than 1 rank. In fact, you're never gonna lose any ranks because no one in their right mind would ever fucking attack these guys. Because if you're attacking them, then what you fucking doing? Go and win the game all over the rest of the board because these guys aren't getting there. I don't know.
But yeah,
Should we move on?
yeah.
Should we
That
look
one,
at? Should we look
yeah,
at?
like I say, give them props. They picked a unit underperforming. They gave it a buff.
Yeah.
They didn't overcorrect. Game is moving in the right direction. It's just not enough.
Yeah. These guys are just serial underperformers. Should we look at a unit that falls into the same points category as this? It's a dragon.
Yeah.
Now,
Remember that 2+ armor? It'd be a shame if somebody ignored it.
let's reminisce briefly about dragons and the. I'm going to put it bluntly, scourge on the meta that they have been since release. They came in 1.6 to a meta dominated by Free Folk and Stark. Free Folk already had the tools to deal with them. Stark already had the tools to deal with them. High activations, out activating only catching them off guard with high damage units or damage over time. Both styles that Free Folk and Stark could do, and they used. They absolutely murked literally everything else in the meta. They murked Baratheons, they murked other Targ builds that weren't Mother of Dragons, they murked fucking neutrals. I mean, neutrals became not a faction because of dragons. They murked Lannisters completely. Like, these guys have absolutely dominated the game since they were introduced. 2021 came along and they got a little bit hit, they were a little bit changed, and they still have proved to dominate the game. Not as much at the competitive end. At the competitive end, people have tools against dragons now. There are builds from basically every faction that can compete and beat a dragon player, relying on either out activation and damage, like 1 high damage unit, or cavalry units and things like Final Strike from Baratheons, or cavalry units with Poor Fellow spam. Hedge Knights in particular coming in to really help Lannisters out in some way. They are finally getting a nerf. And it might be enough.
Another nerf. We said that last time.
But we said
Don't forget, last nerf, they lost their ranged attack. They now hit on 2s.
Yep.
They also ended up with a morale profile, which they previously auto-passed everything. So they took significant nerfs in the past, and they're still an issue.
Yeah.
I think that they will continue to be an inherent issue myself because of the way that they invalidate things like 2+ armor. Right? They invalidate and have such an amazing matchup against 2+ armor. They also... I hate the fact that they ignore so many of the rules that they can, if they want, just fly over units, position themselves behind, those kind of things. They invalidate anything that is too slow to be able to turn to face effectively. Overall, though, I do think that it is a very measured change, as they all have seemed to be, except for maybe a 7 to 6 point switch, which is wild level of a change, in my opinion. All the others are very marginal. This is a change that people have effectively been asking for 6 months. And I do think that it could be right. Mm-hmm. This is the thing. This is the interesting thing. Dragons as individual dragons for 8 points do and don't see play. Like, I actually think that their play level as individual dragons has been pretty acceptable.
Yeah.
And their win rate as individual dragons has been pretty acceptable. The thing that people maintain an issue with in general is the MOD 21.3 point reduction. That is what people have an issue with, and they gave an undisclosed change to that.
Yeah.
Personally, I would like to think that they're just not getting that ability anymore. That maybe MOD now just says like she must buy at least one dragon.
Mm-hmm.
End of list. Doesn't say that you get any reductions, doesn't get anything, doesn't get like that's what I would prefer. But that's because I am not a fan of the MOD list build because of the fact that it takes up half your army. It creates very little options. Did he allude to some kind of like you will now have more options or more list builds or something,
Yeah.
which very much alludes to the idea that you don't have to take all three anymore. I hope that they don't maintain the reduction even when they do take all three. I hope it's not if you take all three, then you get this point reduction. You only have to take one and you don't, or
Yeah.
Or even if I'd actually really hate for it to become, oh, all dragons cost one less.
Yeah.
You must take one. I wouldn't like that at all.
That's exactly what chat's saying. Like chat's saying, like the potential that you don't have to take 3 dragons anymore. You can change it up with perhaps other stuff. And I do think I'm in complete agreement with you, Carlo. I think that change in the auto build list style will make a big difference.
Yeah.
I am a little worried though that if we just change that and say you don't have to take 3 dragons, but dragons are still at the -1 cost and things like this in an MOD list, aren't you just going to take them anyway? Or find an even better build where there's only 2 dragons and you don't need all 3?
Yes, that's my issue. And it comes back to this issue, right? That a 1 point change is a monumental switch.
Yeah.
A dragon at 7 points versus a dragon at 8 points is such a monumental difference. To do it 3 times over is also pretty crazy. But even if you only allow it once, it's such a large thing that even if you just say MOD can buy a dragon and their dragons cost 1 less, I think you're going to see the rise of 1 and 2 dragon lists. Overall, going from 3 auto wounds to rank-based bonus wounds is a nerf. It's in the right kind of scale. It means that dragons don't auto double tap. They never did quite auto double tap anyway, because you could bottom out the D3 rolls. But I think that this unit is in a very acceptable place at 8 points and a very unacceptable place at 7. So I really hope that she doesn't maintain her points reduction.
I think I think the problem we have with dragons here is really difficult. I'm still so glad. I mean, from my perspective, this alone makes giants slightly more playable into the meta, because there isn't a 1 in 3 chance that they just one-shot a dragon. There's now at least I have to fail the panic, and you have to have rolled a 3 on the D3 for the damage as well. So like a giant can survive a dragon attack, which I think is important. A lot more often, because it doesn't completely invalidate that whole side of the game. It's less good against cavalry, especially things like champions of the stag, because actually if they pass the panic, you don't remove a rank. They're still on full ranks. That's important. Overall, I think the change is a positive one. I really do. I'll tell you what I don't like at all is I fucking hate the idea, if Mother of Dragon stays the same, of any form of Mother of Dragon's mirror match, right? I have no desire to play a game where a dragon bites a dragon and you do 2 wounds and your opponent did 4, and the impact that can have in the gameplay, because it's completely dicey. Their interaction, the game is dice based, right? The game is luck based. But having a game based on luck, why it's like that? Oh, I too shot your dragon because I rolled a 3 both times, and I rolled a 1 both times, so it took me 4 shots to kill your dragon with no healing involved and things like this. Like activation efficiency, those kind of efficiencies in that matchup make it fucking miserable. Because there's no skill. Like, I'm sorry, but like you really are removing skill in a lot of those cases.
Don't worry about it, Mickey. You don't play Targs, so I don't think you're ever going to
I
play
don't. It's not a major issue. But I don't like the idea that what that brings to the game. It's already not fun for people who have to play into dragons where they can already do that kind of thing. And now it would just be unpleasant for Targs to play into the Targs because you just got this weird, like, you could kill me at any moment, but I could kill you at any moment, or I could do nothing and then you could just kill me in return. And yeah.
I think that this change is going to push dragons into rarely fielded outside of MOD.
Yep.
And I'm okay with that.
Yes.
I don't hate on dragons, right? Like, it's not like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, oh, they're fucking OP. Like, I don't want to play against them, whatever, stuff like that. This comes back to our discussion last week. I don't like solos. I don't like the way solos function in the game. I don't want the game to be dominated by solos. And I specifically don't like armies that are by majority solos, right? Like, I don't like MOD, which is 1 unit plus 3 solos. Actually, I mean, my troll list was 1 unit plus 5 solos, but that's, that's. You also need to separate. I'm willing to play these things.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think that they're good for the game.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm absolutely okay with dragons becoming a bit of a. They're entirely acceptable. They're still good. They'll still cause people problems. They, at this change, in my opinion, at 8 points, they are going to be more for people who just want to play them thematically. And I think that they'll do fine at that level. The question is, what is the MOD rule as to whether or not MOD is still an issue for the game? And I hope that she's not. I hope that the MOD is losing a 3-point reduction, because she already brings a set of tactics cards which improve her dragons. That's the bonus she got for dragons. She doesn't need to give a points reduction to dragons as well, because dragons are still a big issue, even with this change, at 7 points.
Mm-hmm.
Because 7 points versus 8 points is such a huge margin. Otherwise, you've changed them in the right direction. At 8 points, this unit is fine. I'm happy with that. I don't think it's trash tier, but I'm probably not picking it. I'm probably going to take veterans or blood riders or flayed men or something else outside of some really corner case niche pick.
Cool. So Carly's just really thrown me off there with an idea that I think is terrible. She wants to make a list with 10 freedmen. Don't do that. That's a bad thing. It'll be terrible. It will not end well for you. It will also not end well for any models, and your opponent will just absolutely cry when they see your list. Mainly out of joy, because they'll be like, oh, I can kill all this really easily, and then maybe out of sadness when they're like, Jesus Christ, I can't fucking kill these freedmen fast enough.
You'd have to plan your entire movement out before you even moved. Because
yeah, that sounds exactly like a Carlo list.
They all have to end within short range of a unit that's not a freedman.
That sounds exactly like a Carlo list. What happened this round? Well, I'm going to do this, and then this is going to go here. Done.
My block of 10 freedmen who are surrounding one unit are all going to go here.
Just have a unit of Stormcrow archers and just leave a little gap in the front where they can see out and shoot. It's like a walking tank. No, that's a terrible idea. Don't do that. Don't listen to us. Never listen to stats advice. We're bad at the game. Anyway, so that's the end of the reveals there. As a summary point, yes, dragons. We're not sure about. We still think they're probably. We probably think that Mother Dragons has maybe died a death, and that's a good thing. Or maybe it really hasn't, and that's a really bad thing. Champions could have done with more. Bloody Mummers, maybe it's enough. But then things like, the Mountainsmen, Thenns, Crannogman Trackers, decent changes that are right direction, that probably are just about enough. Night's Watch Trackers, pending. It was a good stream.
Yeah. So I'll tell you this, when it first got announced that there was a stream coming, right?
Yeah.
I had some fears. I was scared that they were going to come on and just be like, here's the balance. without it coming out on War Council. Right?
That's an absolute classic.
That was a big fear of mine. That was also doubly amplified because LVO, which they just promoted, was that weekend, and it would have been entirely tone deaf to not understand that you can't say, here's the balance 2 days before a convention level event, which you're trying to say is a big deal.
Yep.
Which we'll come on to. Totally thing that we haven't even touched on yet. But so they didn't do that. They came on, and very importantly, what we didn't really talk about is they said it will come out in 1 to 2 weeks. Now, call me mad, but for whatever reason, this time I believed them. I believe that it's coming out in a week or two.
Why?
Because they said it. They wouldn't. Because they would have said.
Didn't they say it was out at the end of January?
They would have said next month. If they were trying to be more like, if they weren't literally ready and they weren't literally about to put it out, wouldn't you just say, look, guys, it will be out in February? Like, why would you say 1 to 2 weeks if you don't mean 1 to 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Call me an idiot for not following my own advice, which is you can't trust the dates that they give. I really believe them this time, because if you can't hit a 1 week period, then, 3 weeks, like, surely, like, they say 1 to 2, maybe it's 3, right? Is what I mean. But if they say 1 month, I'm like, God, it might be 3 months. But they said 1 to 2 weeks. So I think, okay, it might be 3 weeks. So basically, they came on and they gave an actual date. They didn't say, oh, here's loads of changes, and it's not on War Council, so it is and it isn't out, and you're in limbo. So I think that's good that they didn't do that. They gave some units, which we've just talked about loads, but I don't care about actually that much. A change doesn't mean anything until you've seen the other changes. Mountain Men, for example, change is worthless unless Poor Fellows and Red Cloaks also change. So I need to know whether or not Poor Fellows and Red Cloaks are changing. Otherwise, I don't care that you've done that little change to Mountain's Men. The changes that they showed as a whole, I think, are positive. Shows that they're taking small, iterative steps to improve the balance over time. I would say I still wasn't a big fan of, like, hey, how somebody specifically asked, like, how often are you going to change this? And Fabio still said, oh, we make changes when we think we should make changes. Basically, I will do it once a year, once we can be bothered, right? Like, because it also was the one thing I fucking hate is how many Baratheons how many Greyjoys are changing? Oh, not many Greyjoys are changing. We're changing like 2 cards because not enough data. Like, no, like, the community know what's right and wrong with this game within a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You have enough data to change and rebalance this game every month. Like, in 1 month's time, you will know what... No, not you, not them, because they don't know. They don't seem to understand, right? The community will know within 1 month's time.
You
right?
know. You watching now.
The people know. The people know and could have told you this in May. In May, the community already told them, like, literally, we could go back and show messages. The community said 8 months ago, this change should happen to dragons.
Yeah.
Right? It can't, like, it's not about data. It's about the fact that they're not interested in the game except once a year, right? Because they have other things to do. They have other games to look after. But I fucking hate the answer, oh, we don't have enough data yet to fix Greyjoys. No, you do. We have enough data. People know, right? But anyway, that's an aside. Overall, pretty positive. Overall, it wasn't tone deaf. And the things that I was scared of was limbo of balance patch. I was scared of them just saying balance isn't ready, but we're not going to tell you when it's out. that I believe their 1 to 2 weeks is maybe fool on me, but I really do believe them. God, why? I can't tell you why, but I do.
Yeah.
And overall, the messaging is relatively positive. I don't think we're going to see massive overcorrections. If anything, I think I'm more nervous about undercorrections and that the balance will stay at a rough status quo. But small corrections, all in the right direction, will make the balance better than it currently is. And that's better. That's better than what we have.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see.
I'm going to throw it out there. And I think it will be better. I do think it will be better. I mean, you can't really get worse, right? But I also agree. I think that the community can get this balance way faster than that. And something I wish they actually did at this point is I think that they have to just admit that they are a little bit behind with things and that they're going to take longer over these changes and they like gut reactions and stuff. And this is because, I mean, it was the previews we told you that Night's Watch weren't good, right? And people were in general agreement there. It was not that far into Targaryen's, Mother of Dragons being good that we said Dragons probably this is too strong, but Night's Watch obviously still dominate that talk. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, going way back when, right?
Yeah.
From the previews, we could tell that Othell was a problem.
Yep.
He got nerfed. Don't forget, he got nerfed before release and was still a problem, right? Don't forget, he used to be stronger until the community were like, what the fuck is that? I can't even remember what he had. He had something else.
It was Donald, right? Donald had set for charge.
It was fucking Donald. Jesus, yeah, all right. And on top of that, like, the community have known and shown things like Mance will be number one from day one, right? And he has shown to be that. Mance is like the only free folk commander that ever wins tournaments, and the only free folk commander that really sees play in tournaments on any significant level. And there are very, very few surprises that aren't seen in the first month, right?
Yeah.
And so this idea that they can't gut react to stuff is what you mean is you don't trust that the community know what they're talking about better than you do, which has been shown time and time again.
I will finish it off with Tim Whitney's comment that he made in chat, which I think is actually very relevant if you're in the UK. And most of our live viewers are in the UK. A lot of our viewers are, but not all of them. But anyone who knows what's been going on in the UK with the whole did Boris attend the party or not? Obviously, Sue Gray's report has been released today. And Tim Whitney's comment: maybe Cmon just need to wait for Sue Gray's report on OP units. Maybe it's should we change the A Song of Ice and Fire stats? So Ice and Fire #stats #Sue Gray and just go with that for the rest of no. So yes, that is the overall balance patch, the overall thing, and it is optimistic, as much as we are kind of like doom and gloom. But I do want to bring up Lee's mention now, because it was a meme and it's not a meme anymore, and I think it is serious in some regards, which is it is entirely likely that in some parts of the world, including the UK, most of Europe, the faction packs that we were memeing about last year, saying a faction pack's going to be here before LGT, the answer was no. A faction pack's going to be here before Always Winter, the answer was no. The faction packs are not even going to be released by the time these changes come out. That doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother Carlo. It doesn't bother most people who play competitively. It probably doesn't bother most people. But it is an issue. It's an issue
for the growth of the game. It remains a continuous issue for trying to introduce somebody to the game, which is that they can't buy the faction pack. And it will not sit particularly well with people. That's the thing that we didn't actually talk about, right? Which is they have framed all of these changes. I think 100% of these changes are actually now framed as optional tournament rules.
That it's hard. They don't say that, right? They don't say that, but they do say that the rules are that they're making changes to are optional tournament ones. So whether it means the changes with the cards are optional tournament ones, or if they mean just the rulebook changes, or
Yeah.
it's really hard to decipher exactly what they
I
meant from that.
felt like what they said was all of these changes, including card-based changes.
Maybe.
You don't. I mean, they very clearly said, very very adamantly said, if you don't want to play these changes, then just
Just
crack
don't.
open a card box
Yeah.
and play them like they haven't changed, right? But I think what they're missing there is that there is a whole mishmash of the community who play with cards or play with War Council or play with this or play with that, right? Like, and I don't mean various groups in various places. I mean literally, like, I play with the stats builder. I don't use cards. My opponents use cards sometimes. Some people put cards down on the table. We can't possibly have different rule sets
Agreed.
in those things at the same time, different versions of the same card, and you say, oh yeah, but it's kind of optional whether or not you use that.
Yeah.
Like that's not, unless you have actual two different versions available in War Council and you're like, are you playing tournament rules or are you not? Then all changes are changes and they have to be implemented across the entire game. But that said, as much as I'm absolutely fine with rules changing and I'm happy with my cards changing because I don't use them anyway, telling somebody that when they've just started the game, that Night's Watch starter that they just bought, by the way, all your cards are out of date. You need to buy this faction pack. But, by the way, that faction pack also out of date. You're now going to have to print off some amount of those cards because they've been changed, right? Yeah. That they can't even buy the faction pack is a problem. When they can buy the faction pack, you're instantly telling them from the day it gets released, by the way, that's also not entirely up to date. I do think that that's a negative for the community. Very negative for the growth of the game. It's not a problem for the people who play the game right now, except for the fact that it's harder for them to grow their communities. It's not a problem for tournament players. It's not a problem for the people who, most of the people who watch this. It is a problem for the growth of the game. It is a problem for this game being bigger, and it deserves to be bigger. I think that if they stage this and propose this as just optional tournament rules, I'm not bored with that. That's not good to say that this is what tournament play is, which is what 99% of people are going to be playing, and then some other people will be like, oh, I didn't know we were playing tournament rules when they like turn up to some event. You're like, well, of course we play tournament. Like, you know what I mean? Like, tournament rules is the rules. Like, we're not going to just keep playing the same game after updates come out. Some people play the updates before they've even come out. I know people have already tested these changes. People want to play the latest thing, except a few people who are absolutely adamant that they want nothing to ever change.
Now, there was, and I don't disagree, by the way, there was a guy who posted on Reddit, specifically he's posted a thread, as is always the case when something bad happens, someone complains somewhere, right? And he posted a thread of, you know, Cmon are scam artists because of the whole faction pack thing and what that means. And it, you know, got heavily downvoted by a lot of people, obviously, and, you know, people said, well, they're not scam artists. It's not how it works. And I wanted to bring this up because actually I think he's not wrong, right? He's not wrong entirely in that people are going to feel hard done by. People are going to feel exactly like this bloke. I think he's wrong for saying that they're scam artists. I think he is. But do I think he's wrong to be annoyed that he is in a position where he's probably only just picked up his faction pack in the last kind of month or so, and he knows it's immediately gone out of date? That sucks. Like, that sucks from a community perspective and from a player perspective, especially if you're not that engrossed in the community.
Yeah, here's how I'd say. I haven't not even read it. Are Cmon scam artists? No. Does he feel like he's been scammed? Yes. Like, he feels like he's been scammed.
Yeah.
And you can't get away from that feeling. No. Once you start feeling like a game rips you off, there's no coming back, right? That's one of the reasons why I don't get into MCP, because I think that as much as I think from the outside it looks like a good game, if you look at the total value of how expensive it would be for me to like pick up the models that I want and to play with them, wouldn't even be that high by comparison to how much I spend on Song. Every time I look at one of those boxes and it costs like 40 quid, I'm like, that's a scam. I'm not buying that. That's got 2 models in it, right?
Yeah.
I feel like it's a scam and I don't want to buy it. Song of Ice and Fire, I'll happily buy a unit for £30 and put it in the cupboard and never play it, because you know what? Feels like good value to me.
Yeah.
It feels good. I feel like I got worthwhile value out of it. I feel like it's an okay price. Therefore, I buy it. The moment I feel like I'm getting scammed and I feel like you're asking me for too much money, that's it. We're done. I'm not buying that. I'm not playing anymore, because you make me feel bad when I make the purchase, and that's how you instantly end up in a bad place. And people, as Tom Alexander says, people feel bad about the foil packs that they bought.
Yeah.
And some people, and a rising number of casual players, are feeling bad about the card packs that they've bought or are being told to buy or feel like they need to buy. And yeah, I think that is unfortunate, and that is gonna drive people away from the game.
Yeah.
I think that they should go fully digital. Like, I really do.
I think they need to bite the bullet and just admit. And this is the other thing. They need to turn around and say, look, sorry, guys, the faction packs, that was a problem, right? There's been issues there. We're going to go digital from now on. So we can't promise we can fix the problems of the past. We can say it's going to be digital going forward. You won't have to buy update packs anymore. We're going to do away with that. And then they can have a print-on-demand service for people who want physical stuff. I do genuinely think print-on-demand is a good way for them to go, because it's not that hard to organise. There is enough places in certainly most major countries that will do that kind of service. So I do think that's the way to go. And I agree. I think going digital's a brilliant way. I know that we're preaching to the converted somewhat. Not everyone here uses stats all the time. But I exclusively use stats now for pretty much everything. The only time I ever go on War Council is legitimately sometimes it's easier to go and check something on War Council if it's like one stat of a particular thing, because it loads faster sometimes, not all the time. That is literally it. It's the only reason, or actually, because annoyingly they're not on stats. Things like game modes, I check on War Council because we don't have them on stats. That's the kind of stuff I check on War Council, because War Council is good. Like, aside from the problems it's had with bugs or miss things like that, it's actually a good app. It does its job well. The stats builder, in my opinion, is the go-to, of course. I don't use the physical cards at all anymore, outside of placeholders, really. I found myself
tactics cards. Obviously they are tactics cards. That's why I went out and bought.
Yeah, exactly.
For every faction, the new cards, because what I bought was tactics cards.
Yes.
I don't care about your unit cards at all. No fucks given at all.
You know what I do? I legitimately now say, look, here's my stack of physical unit cards when I'm at an event, right? Here's the stack of unit cards for this army that I'm playing, and like my commanders and attachments and all that. They're there. If you want to look at them, they're there. It's also available on the app. Look at it on the app, and the most number of people I saw at Always Winter would look at it on the app because it's faster and easier. And the only other things I use are tactics cards. I know my own tactics deck like the back of my hand. I should know everything. So when I'm playing cards, I'm not playing a card and being like, look, I'm playing this and this is what it does. I'm saying, look, I'm playing this card. There you go. There's the card. You can read it. If there's any FAQ questions, of course, I know them. And the only other time I ever use it is for fucking NCUs, where it's like, I've got my NCU card in here. Again, I'm putting this, I'm doing this with it. If you want to know what it does, it's there. Like, I don't think I've ever needed anybody to read out a card to me what it does, read out what their unit does, or anything when I play Song anymore. Partially because I know the stuff, but also because I've got all the information on the app if I need it. Yeah. And I know it's really weird. I don't need to communicate with my opponent for what their stuff does. But, like, I should be communicating with the opponent about other things, not what their stuff does, in my opinion. Like how they're doing. How are you doing?
It brings up the point which I don't know if they felt a bit touchy about, like this whole discussion around like the print on demand and the availability of it and the value of it and stuff like that. Also came up because people asked, like, what is the percentage? They asked them what % of things are changing, right? And the answer came up 5%, which I think, okay.
5% of every card.
I think what they are claiming, I'll give them the biggest benefit of the doubt, which is when you bought a 2021 faction pack, 95% of those cards, total sum, if you add up every card in your box, 95% of them will still be valid. 5% of them will now need to be different. I would say of those changes, about 90% of them are going to be units. I think that nearly all the units will change, or at least like 50% of the unit cards will be invalid, and nearly all of your tactics cards will still be valid, is my guess. I think that they should change tactics cards, but I actually think that they're not going to change any tactics cards outside of, like
obvious events.
Didn't Belwas, doesn't Belwas have like an actual typos on his card, right?
Yeah,
like
Belwas' cards.
Yeah, so like there's actually an acknowledged mistake on Belwas's card, right? So I believe that his tactics cards will change in this edition. Their names are the wrong way around. And I think that we're looking, myself, I would say 50% of all units changing, a couple of tactics cards changing, and they're claiming that sums up to 5% of cards have changed, and that 95% of the cards you bought are still valid.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is the most generous you can be with what he stated without saying that's a lie.
And that's, again, we don't want to dwell on it too much longer, but that's the pain point, isn't it? And it will cause issues down the line. So we'll move on to the next piece of news. It's still on news. Jesus Christ, it's 2.25 hours in, and we haven't even moved off the news. Fucking hell. So the next big one came out on, I think it was Wednesday, or it might have been Thursday or Friday. I can't even remember. All I know is that the person who this actually mattered to most didn't know. So the next one was not this one. Let's see if I've actually got it stored up. Is it this one?
Wait, before we move on,
Yeah?
Scorched Earth says, didn't they say that Baratheons were getting 2 new tactics cards? Did they actually say that? Did I not listen closely enough?
If I missed that, if they did.
I hope they are. I hope one of them sustained assault.
So, the next thing that got announced is the US National Championships. So, there's a lot to unpack here, but it's quite easy to unpack, but it's a lot to kind of process. So, the US National Championships is happening again at Gen Con in 2022, towards the end of the year. And it's going to be a qualify for event. It requires you to qualify for the event, basically. And for the national event, you need to attend a regional qualifier, with which, if you win, you get a spot at nationals. And if you, in some of the cases, if you end high at the events, like if I think LVO, it was the top 4 slots, who also got a slot at nationals as well. That's the long and short of it, is that you have a regional qualifier for nationals, which actually, all of that, not a problem, right? I personally I didn't like the qualifier structure. I didn't like the lack of structure that it had. But talking with Carlo, I kind of understood the method they went for, and I could see from their perspective why that was the way it was. It makes a lot of sense, to be honest. But that's where the good parts of it's kind of end, in that it's brilliant that they're putting something together. It's brilliant that they're offering stores a chance to be regional qualifying stores. It's great that they're offering these opportunities to people. It's brilliant to see them back in the organised play sphere properly. But it's shit. it all falls down because of a few problems. Firstly, the first spot goes to last year's winner, so Brett. They talk about they name Brett obviously winning last year, which makes sense. Like that's a given. Like that the winner from the previous event gets a spot. Like that's quite a natural thing. We did it for the Invitational. More on that in a bit. So yeah, like that's not weird. That's great. But last year it was it an 8-person event? Maybe it's 12. I can't remember
I think it was
nationals.
12. I
12
think it was 12.
12-person event, and they get an invite. Okay, but it was nationals. It's just I can still get the invite, right? But they also come along with a 2-round bye for their argument, as they actually answered
Yeah,
questions on this.
I'm so
They answered questions on this.
interested in what this buy system will be.
They
Like,
said it's because it's a long event and it's to like help against fatigue. And
I mean,
my argument is that's a load of bullcrap, and that if your reward is to not have to play games, that's really fucking dumb. Because the whole reason that your event surely should be run is to play fucking games. Combined with, I think it's unfair. I just think it's ridiculous that some people don't have to play games to win.
so the only time, the only process by which I think that buy system could and should be used,
Yep.
myself, and I mean, like, tournament structures are actually something that I've studied long and hard. You know, I won't go into like all the semantics of it, but you know, like, I am very interested in how various gaming systems run their tournaments, what the appeal of them is, and what the advantage of different ones are and aren't. Now, the only time that buys have a value is in an invite-based system, which this is, or, you know, qualification-based system, which this is. You can give winners entry into the point at which everybody else has to qualify on the day. But everybody else has to be open entry. It's not this person qualified by this method and comes in at this point. This person qualified by coming second, third, and fourth and comes in at a lower point and must play more games. So effectively, it is. We're talking about games where we're talking about Magic, card games, poker tournaments, these kind of things, right? These are the kind of things that you have to look at. They've got 1,000 entries, right? And what they're going to do is they're going to try and sift 1,000 people down into like a 34-player bracket.
Yeah.
Sorry, 32-player bracket over the first 2 days. And what you're going to do is you're going to say, these 4 people have already qualified for the 32-player bracket, and they don't have to go through the qualifying stages.
Yes.
You don't say, this person comes in at like the semifinals, this person comes in at quarterfinals, and these people are all coming in at the top 32, and these people are coming in at the top 64. Like, that's like, I cannot and have not ever heard of a system by which this works. Never seen it done in the past, never been successful. Honestly, 100%, genuinely, if you have seen it used in a different system and you have any idea of what they're trying to achieve with these buys with a qualification-based system, please send it to me on Discord, because I would be interested to know what game is running this successfully. Also, as Abiscus has just asked, this buy system is done in single or double elimination tournaments, right? That's where win, you progress, lose, you're out. It is never done in Swiss pair, right? Because the point of Swiss pairing is that everybody plays an equal number of games and the results of those games affect your final positioning. Knockout-based brackets, however, it's worth having buys, and buys are very significant because they effectively mean that you are already further through the event. I have no clue what they're trying to achieve.
I wanted to bring this up because a buy, is it a standard or a crushing? A buy in their own rules.
By their own document, it's a standard, not a crushing.
Right. I was posit this actually because it occurred to me that let's take Brett as an example, right? And I'm going to make it 3 games because 3 games it's easier to do the maths. But actually, we could make it more games, and the maths does get nicer when there's more games in terms of like how people can get there. But if Brett comes out and he gets a crushing win in his 3rd game of only 3 games that he has to play because the other 2 were standard win buys, and somebody played 2 very close games against somebody else very good in each time, and they got a narrow victory and a narrow victory. Someone's playing some of the best people in the country, and they're getting narrows and narrows. And in their last game, they come out and maybe get a standard, and Brett gets a crushing win. Brett would qualify ahead of them for the major, like the next series. And it's like, well, Brett played 1 game and did well in 1 game, versus somebody else narrowly beating, like, say, the 3 next best players in the world.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how does that work? Because in theory, this is how silly it could be, because we don't know how they're going to do their system. But the buy system, depending on the number of players they've got, somebody with 2 buys or even 1 buy could enter in their first round be against somebody who hasn't won a game.
Yeah. I'm so confused about what they're trying to achieve. I think that the other thing is that like it has huge reminiscence of what they tried to do last year, like the original tournament that they tried to put out last year, where they said, "Oh, the tournament's going to be 9 rounds over 2 days, and we're going to have a top 16 cut." I mean, don't forget they got 12 people total. Like the thing is like they're trying to implement systems, and that 9 round tournament, 5 days, going to a top 16 cut again is somebody looking at a 1,000 player poker tournament and saying, "Oh, that looks like a sensible," or 1,000 player Magic the Gathering, or any kind of card game, because it has to be a relatively quick game for you to be able to play 9 rounds over 2 days. They're basing it on systems that are successful in games with thousands of entrants, and where the point of your system is to get you from 1,000 entrants down to 1 winner as quickly as possible. But tabletop games and every successful system is not entirely about that. Every successful tournament is about getting people to play as many games as they can against people of similar levels to themselves, so that they have good games and enjoy them, all the while putting people in order, so you end up with a winner down through to mid-table and the bottom of the table, right? That is the point of the tournament. If you're actually trying to create a system where what you really just want to know is who's the best in the world, then it should be knockout. It should not be Swiss draw, right? Like, because if you've lost, what's the point in still playing? Because you can't be the winner, right?
Yeah.
But nobody implements that in tabletop tournaments because people aren't there to only win the event and nothing else. People are there to play games. So that's why I have.
Game. That's the thing.
Yeah. I really am nervous about what they're trying to achieve with this buy. And like last time, they completely changed their mind, completely changed what they did on the day, because it turned out that was a stupid idea. I hope that they come to the realization that this is also a stupid idea, and really, change what they're doing, because it should just be a Swiss draw event. And like, if you have a qualification-based Swiss draw event, that's a great event. That is a great event. Nothing wrong with people qualifying. Nothing wrong with you giving it to the winners of big conventions. I think it's a great idea to be able to say any store can run these qualifiers. It will hopefully get more people there, because hopefully there's more than 12 people this time. Hopefully it makes it more prestigious, bigger event. At least we're talking, surely they want it to be at least a 32-player event, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just run a normal Swiss draw.
Yeah.
And that will be a great event. And that's a great step forward. I think they're trying to do too much, and they're basing their structures on what's working in professional level tournaments where people win millions of pounds, like actually millions of pounds, or at least like £100,000 of prizes, and there are thousands of people competing in huge events. And also they're basing it on games and systems that play out in 30 to 40 minutes, and that's why you're able to play 9 rounds.
Interestingly, Tom brings up a good point, ironically, about Dean, obviously at Always Winter. But actually, Dean's case at Always Winter is exactly something else that we don't see them mention about the organized play system, which is they're not rewarding best in faction, which is a massive actual thing that I thought they would have taken from what we've done and the lessons there learned. You'd have thought you'd said, actually, why aren't we saying, yes, we've got the best player in the world at Gen Con or whatever by them winning, but actually we're going to have best in factions as well being celebrated because that matters. And then those buy system really does come back to bite you yet again. It serves no purpose. If you're really genuinely good and you qualify and you go in with buys and you get given a standard victory, and then you lose out on the ability to go all crushing, which you might try and do, you've lost out. You've lost on playing games. You've lost out. Like you lose. In the worst case scenario, right? And I say this in the nicest possible way, but if the final is Brett versus somebody who like didn't get a buy, and Brett wins the final, it's like, yeah, I mean, obviously congratulations to the winner, this, that, and the other, but he played 2 less games than this other person. This other person, in comparison, is probably fucking knackered. You know what I mean? Like, of course that person was going to win. You don't play a tennis tournament at Wimbledon or something like that, or the Australian Open, and just say, actually, you're Roger Federer. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll put you in at the semi-final, because then you don't have to play all those other games first. Like, if that happened at Wimbledon or something like that, it'd be absolute outrage. Outrage. It bugs me, and that's not any of the players that are going who are at fault. It's the organisation of the event.
I'm also, I mean, it affects me, so I'm pissed off.
Yeah.
I as far as I can tell, there's no way that international players are allowed to play. Like, and I'm personally angry. Like, I mean, I've had the travel plans and the time off to go to Gen Con for a year and a half. And as things currently stand, I will be going to Gen Con. I will not be playing A Song of Ice and Fire, which actually seems a bit ludicrous. But, you know, like, I mean, like, yeah, I'm sure I mean, that will be me and only me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm literally the only person who's like, what the fuck? Not true, actually. I believe there are a number of Canadians who are like, what the fuck? But I believe that they are allowed to also try and run store qualifiers, and they are allowed to qualify if they want to travel. But that there isn't any provision for you to say give qualification spots based on European tournament proceedings is you know, like, just silly. Like why? Like, why have you randomly turned around to an event which previously was 12 people and criminally undersubscribed, and now what you're saying is people who want to enter can't enter?
You made it exclusive.
That's not going to grow your event.
They made the event that was attended by one of the least attended events of that period at that time more exclusive. And that's not to say that that's anyone's. I mean, this is no one's fault but Cmon's, right? There's no one else's at fault here.
Yeah, like,
not like Family Time Games where it was run. You know, nothing to do with them. Nothing to do with their fault whatsoever. It's to do with Cmon and the problem that Cmon have now presented. And I think it just adds a really bad precedent. And I think,
but that's
actually,
because it affects me. Like, it's just because it affects me. But like, there are tons. I know that there are a number of European players who would be willing to play in this event. You know, like, they may not be as pissed off as me because they don't already have travel plans and will not already guaranteed be there. They just would have liked the opportunity. But, you know, I know that Slavek, who won LGT, also was intending to travel to LVO, did not make it in the end. But there are a number of Europeans who have shown and are willing to travel to these events, but you will not be able to go multiple times to meet the qualification requirements. And so if you're not willing to just say, yes, if you win a European event, we'll also be willing to give you a spot, then I think you're just you're setting yourself up to not be the best tournament at all, like nowhere near close to the best quality event run this year, like at all. Like you'll be nowhere close if you do not allow people to internationally travel.
At the rate they're going, you know what? I'm going to make a punt now, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll put my hands up and say I'm wrong. I reckon Gen Con this year, in terms of number of players, unless they open it out, the caveat there being they might open it out, right? But if they don't open out and it's only qualifying people and only qualifying stores and this, that, and the other, and people dropping out because they might not be able to make it, I'm going to say 30 people to 40 people.
Yeah, I don't think that they will offer out 32 spots. This is my actual prediction. My actual prediction is that they will look to offer out. They will end up offering out somewhere around 32 spots, and my guess would be about 20 of them will be accepted, and you will end up with a 20-person event. That's my actual prediction. Like that's roughly off the top of my head what I think. If you're looking at the fact that they've offered 4 to LVO, 1's gone out already. It looks like they're probably going to offer out 4. Do they mention Adepticon? Yep. 4 to WonderCon. That's 13 offers going out. You're going to add in another 20 offers run through store events.
Let's name.
We're talking about.
Let's name.
Let's just look at the maths of that, which is there's about 20 weeks between now and then. That means that somebody would have to be running and winning a qualifying event practically every week, unless they're going to offer more than one spot to these other smaller events. Well, that is how you get to 33 offered places.
Yeah.
And I think that's how many they're going to offer out. And then you're not going to get a 100% take up of that. We'll come on to the Invitational. That one's a bit different because I'm offering out spots all around the world. But I expect less than half of the people that I offer spots to actually accept them. I think that they're going to end up with roughly about 20 people at this event. That's my current prediction.
I will actually go as far as saying we could name stores, which we are. I would be surprised if they didn't run qualifiers because they've got all the requirements there to run a qualifier. But let's name the American stores that we know from stats. Fabricators Forge, I'd expect them to run a qualifier. I think they're a store, so they will do. Gamers Haven, I expect them to run a store. I'm guessing Family Times Game will do one in Indy. It makes sense to do a qualifier, why not? I expect them to run one. You've got the other one that's near Fabricators Forge that isn't Fabricators Forge. There's the 3 next
the other Pittsburgh place.
Yeah, there's 3 next to each other in Pittsburgh, right? So there's another 2, so that means there's like 5. You've got there's another place not too far away from Gamers Haven, I believe, that isn't Fabricators Forge as well, that I've heard other people say in that area go to events for. So you might get another one there. You're going to have Khal on the West Coast. You're probably going to get 1, maybe 2, maybe even 3, probably organised all by Khal for regional events in different stores that he's done things there with. So there's another 3. So maybe we're up to 8. You're going to get Mythicos. Did I mention Mythicos on the East Coast in New York? Maybe the one in New Jersey as well, right? So what, 2 more? Maybe some up in not Maine, but something up near Massachusetts, I believe.
The other question that comes up, question that comes to mind is how many spots will they offer to these things? Which will come out in time. We're just speculating at this point, right? We're just speculating. How many will you offer to this event? Will it be based on how big the event is? Surely it has to be, right? You can't be offering 2 qualifying spots to like an 8-person event and also 2 qualifying spots to a 30-player event. But say we just talked about winners. Maybe we talk about top 2s or something like that, because they're only offering 4 to what they consider convention level events. So you're offering out 2 spots or whatever to these tournaments. The big question is whether or not they pass down if people don't accept it, or if they already have a spot. Because the thing is that if a store, say Gamers Haven, has a strong community and runs multiple events between now and then, all of which could qualify you, there is a real, genuine chance that the same people continue to win and continue to take those spots each time that happens. Now, the issue there is you think you've just given out 3 or 6 of your spots at the event, but it turns out you've just given the same person a qualifying spot 3 times in a row. Or at least, like you thought you gave out 4 spots and you actually only gave out 2 because it just ended up being the same 2 people who came first and second each time.
Yeah.
And that, if you look at the tournament histories, is very predictable. Like the same people continue to win events constantly, which is why it's a good thing to offer them spots and get them to this event and get it to be the best of the best. But the flip side of that is you should only be doing it if you can't accommodate the amount of people that you expect to come, and you have a real reason to believe that you're going to end up with lots and lots of people trying to get these spots. So I think that I just think that they're constantly trying to run before they can walk. Just run a successful 32 player event, guys. Like, please, just get your foot in the door. Understand what makes an event successful. They've learned from last time. You've already shown how much they've learned from last time. They've announced it 6 months earlier.
Yeah.
Right? And they're doing, positive steps in that direction. It will be bigger than last time, but they're still trying to take steps that they don't really seem to understand, in my opinion. You're making really, really, really odd decisions. As far as we're concerned, like me and Chris talk about LGT structure, and we talk about different things. We look at all the other events that the LGT that's been running at the LGT. We compare ourselves to why they're bigger than us, what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, what we learned from last time. All of these things take a lot of learning and a lot of understanding to get right. But they just seem to think that it's just going to happen instantly, and that they're just going to magically create a big event that everybody wants to be at in an instant with a post. And I also, for example, let's call it now. We know that this is not going to be regularly and continuously well promoted by their team, because nothing is. I would expect to not see any more posts about this until the day before Adepticon. And probably not. If they were serious about this, I would have expected them to have posted, hey, Khal Gurney. I never even pronounced how you pronounce his name. Gurney? Whatever.
I don't know.
Gurney. Winner of LVO, plus, Carl West Coast Bannerman. Do you know what I mean? Plus, Dakota, plus, I'm sorry, I forget who the other person is. Plus somebody else have all just qualified. Do you know what I mean? You'd instantly get in and you'd push that. You'd use that to start to kick the things off. Hey, now we have 5 people, not 1. Now this is growing. We're not going to see that. We're not going to see that level of input from them. I'm really, really sure. So, I just think that they try to run before they walk is the perfect analogy, and they're going to fall flat on their face, because that's what happens when you try and run before you walk.
Number 4 was Stovetop, by the way, Stephen.
Yeah.
So obviously I do think that's an issue. I also think you highlight another issue for me, and I know we talked about why this is not as big as it sounds, but one issue that I hate is that you mentioned it before, the same store running multiple regional events feels very counterintuitive. Do you know what I mean? The same store running the same regional event. Oh, I qualified from this region, and because I didn't win, I just ran another event the next week until I won, kind of thing. I don't like that personally, because then if people really want to, anyone who actually really wants to go, they can find a way of going. Do you know what I mean? So it's if you're in the US, you can definitely go to Gen Con if you want and play, if you can convince a store to let you go, kind of thing.
I guess,
but
But actually, this is the large part of the discussion that me and Mickey had in private, which is that personally, I believe that if the only thing that this does is make people run more events,
yeah,
then it's a positive for Cmon, right?
yeah,
If
definitely.
all it does is make you think, hey, I'll run an event every month, which is a qualifier, and that you get to say this is an official nationals qualifier, and that brings one new person into your store who is willing to travel because he desperately wants to qualify for nationals or whatever, then it's a positive as a whole for the community.
Yep.
And it's definitely a positive for the stores and a positive for the game. So that part I actually understand and I applaud. It's just the implementation is very heavy-handed, and obviously it's very vague, and we're guessing a bit at what we think the logical implementation of it is. But they have shown time and time again that like some things are very illogical with the way that Cmon kind of implement their tournament. At least like lots of things about it in the past have been crazy, crazy odd, crazy weird.
I will say this though, right? I do think that, and this is an issue for me personally. I do think that basically there's an issue here which it should be celebrating the game, and everything they do, you say about like inviting people or having more events run, that's a celebration of the game, is at odds with the buy system, which I don't think is good. It's at odds at the very core concept of how they advertise the game. That doesn't celebrate the game enough. So that goes against the odds of running all these events, because they're not going to advertise any of those regional events, are they? So it's all down to the stores themselves. And all of those things, I agree. Like, there's a lot of good there, but they're all in bipolar. Like, literally, it's all bipolar. Like, there are good things, but because they're not being backed by other good action, the good thing you've done is irrelevant. Like, you are literally going to turn up at regionals. 100%. You are going to turn up at regionals, and you aren't even going to know who else has qualified. I'm guarantee it. Guarantee it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not a good thing. That does all those tournaments that you've just said are running for regional qualifiers. What is the fucking point if you didn't know who any of the winners were?
And obviously, like me and Mickey come as close as is possible to being as obsessed with the tournament scene of this game, right? There is a very strong chance that in 6 months' time, we have no clue who has qualified. That in 6 months' time, we will have no clue how big the event's going to be until people turn up on the day. And, like we won't know if 30 people have qualified, 100 people have qualified, or 12 people have qualified. And they're monumentally different tournaments. And that's my guess as somebody who, if the information exists, would go and look at it and would go and find it. I just don't think it will ever be it's at all in the next 6-7 months going to be publicly available. And if you're not making it publicly available, you're not gaining any value out of it. Like you're not using it to grow the game. You're not making the game look good. And it's the same way that like running a nationals and having 12 people there does not make the game look good.
No.
Like, that's not a thing that people can go and tell their friends, look at this amazing tournament, why aren't we playing this game? Now I'm not sure if Carl's trolling or not.
Yeah, he is, thankfully. I can imagine.
Because you know what? I'd believe it.
So, there's all that. Obviously, congratulations to the people who've already got seats and stuff like that. But one thing that we haven't even mentioned, right? And this is the absolutely, like, it's not a surprise, but it is fucking inane, right? But Carl Kirsten woke up while attending LVO as the tournament organizer, and I literally sent him a message saying, Carl, have you seen this? To his response is, what the fuck is this that I'm waking up to? The organizer of the event didn't even fucking know that his event was going to give spots for Gen Con.
Yeah.
Like, what?
I know that some people will be a little bit like, oh, just play whatever you want, or just play the game, have fun, stuff like that. I do think that that is something to be said about the LVO. You remember we were just talking about LVO is brilliant. Balance didn't come out 2 days beforehand, right?
Yes.
It's not as big a deal, but it's still a pretty big deal that if 2 days before the tournament, when people actually is it 1 day? It came out on Thursday. LVO
Khal
started
was
on the Friday.
already there.
Yeah. Literally 24 hours before, people will be in Vegas, be at the tournament, have their armies. You go, by the way, you know that event that you're playing in? It's super serious now, by the way. And you're like, oh, but I just came for fun and I brought a troll army, but I really want to go to nationals. Do you know what I mean? It's like that, and you're just like, tough shit, mate. shouldn't have bought Baratheons then, should you? Do you know what I mean? It's like, honestly, if I'd gone to Scotland with Baratheons, and then the day before, when I'm already there, you'd gone, by the way, the winner of this event, they get to qualify for an event in Europe. I'd be like, why the fuck did I bring Baratheons? That's not fair. I brought Baratheons to have fun and troll around, but I want that. Do you know what I mean? And if you gave me any warning that, I would have brought something good. Yeah. I think people might say, "Oh, come off it," you're doing whatever. But I think that it really changes the ethos of the tournament, and I don't think it's a good look that they didn't know, that the people attending LVO didn't know that they were gonna. And I tell you what's worse, or will definitely be worse. I don't know if it's true or not. If some people knew and others didn't, then that's actually like really bad. If some people knew that they were going there to earn a spot and other people just thought they were playing an event because they wanted to enjoy it, then that massively changes the way some people build for the event and some people approach the event. So I hope that nobody got done by that. I really do. I actually really hope that nobody feels hard done by the last minute announcement, and that if you want to qualify, I hope that you are able to qualify. I hope that everybody who wants to go out and qualify feels that they have an adequate opportunity to do so. I hope everybody can find a store that can run it for them, that everybody's store gets the opportunity to if they ask. And I hope that enough spots get given out that everybody feels that they had an opportunity to, and that the event is big, because I still think that only roughly 50 to 60% of the people who do earn a spot will turn up.
Yeah. And I say nothing will go back to like a head in hand moment of recent times.
Carl's saying that he didn't know. Yeah, I can bloody believe it. He played Starks.
No, he literally.
Anybody who thought that they were trying to gain a qualifying spot isn't turning up with Starks, are they?
Yeah. The actual thing he sent me, this is on the morning, he sent me a message being like, his morning, right? Better prediction. They named it something like West Coast Regionals because it's too late for me to be pissed about it now. And it's literally just like, yeah, it blindsided him, and that sucks. It sucks that like he got blindsided by a reveal about the event that he was supposed to be taking over organizing. That's annoying. Right. Are we nearly done with all the news?
US Nationals is back.
Yeah.
It will be bigger and better.
Yep. Can't get worse.
Because the standard is currently 12 people with the tournament announced 3 weeks before it actually happens. I'm still very, very nervous about the structure that they have given some indications is going to be very weird.
Yep.
And I have very, very low expectations of the actual final turnout, because I think that it's unlikely that they will offer enough spots that the tournament will actually be big.
Yeah.
And personally, that pisses me off because I will be there and I feel like that it won't be oversubscribed, and therefore by making it exclusive, all you've done is just make it smaller than it could have been.
Yep. On happier news, LGT tickets are on sale. Quick reminder, you can go find them here. You can buy yours now. One thing we did want to say is that there is a flexible option available for people buying LGT tickets this year. A flexible option you can buy. It does raise the price ever so slightly, and you're thinking, well, why would I buy a more expensive ticket? Well, two benefits. One, it allows you to play in a different game system, which is awesome, right? Don't do that, but it does allow you to do that, which is really interesting. So you can buy a flexible ticket and then not necessarily have to play in the game system you signed up for. So if you might buy 40k and think, actually, I really hate 40k balance right now. I'll play some Song instead. Do that. Song's great. But actually, the thing about flexible ticket is it has a 14-day refund limit, so you can get a refund up to 14 days before the event, rather than within 30 days of purchase, which is the standard. So if you are an international player and you are looking to attend internationally, but you cannot necessarily know for a fact you're going to make it, obviously COVID's still kind of a thing in some areas and there's all regulations and travel problems. If you're really not sure you're going to be able to make it, you can buy a flexible ticket, and then like 3 or 2 weeks before the event, you can go, actually, this is too much of a pain. I can't do this. Something's come up. Whatever. You can get a refund on your ticket. Hopefully, not many people do. But
if you buy your tickets within the first month, which is now, then you'll go into a draw to win a faction starter of your choice at the event.
Yeah.
Chris doesn't want to go through the whole hassle of trying to post it out this time.
Yeah, it was a nightmare.
The draw will happen just before the event. At the event, you will know that you'll pick your faction starter. Chris will make sure that it's there for you at the event. If you buy your tickets within the first month, just a reminder, in 2 days, we've sold over 50 tickets for the main event, over 30 tickets for the Friday night ELO event. That's already twice as big as ELO already was last time. That's more than we ended up with at the tournament last time in total. We're heading for more than 100. And I reckon we're going to get a full, complete 124 bracket. That's the kind of height that I think we're going to reach.
Bit awkward because a full 124 bracket's actually 128 players.
Yeah, that one. Doubling numbers is hard, Mickey.
Right, yeah, so that's the hope. I was saying to Carlo the other day, like, I think we'd be absolutely smashing it if we get over 100. I think we'd aim for over 100, and we can get there, and everything is pointing to us to definitely get over 100. And I do think we can get a full 128 in the time. So as I said, spread it among communities and things like that. There's lots of people still haven't bought tickets and things like that. The Invitational, though, some of the places of the Invitational have been offered out, and more importantly, some of them have of course been accepted. That's the important
bit. This is how you run an actual invitation. Like all that chat isn't because we want to make ours. Yeah, it's some people will be like, "Oh, you're always negging, guys." Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not because we want ours to look better by comparison or anything like that. It's that we spent a very long time discussing the right and wrong way for us to run our invitational-based event. And we feel like they did all the things that we said were wrong. But here we go. So, the Invitational, for those who don't know, will be a 16-player invite-only tournament. Those who don't know, it runs on the Friday night as the side event alongside the ELO tournament. So those ELO tickets that you can buy will, if you end up in the Invitational or you're hoping to be in the Invitational, the ticket is for both either. They run side by side. It will be 4 rounds in one evening. So you better be ready to play hard and fast. Because we're inviting only the really top level players, we expect they will be able to cope with it. That's why we're willing to put 4 games at an hour and a half each in 12 p.m. onwards. It's gonna be tough times, guys.
It is, yeah. So, running through the list, I am going to try and get everyone up so you can see who's in contention, and we'll obviously go through why they're invited and, more importantly, why they've accepted. I can't tell you why they've accepted, but I can make up an awesome story about why they've accepted. That's my bit. So,
I'm pretty sure I can tell you.
No, you can't.
I can tell you from the top. Number 1 ranked player right now, Mikkel, is invited.
I've got them all open, ready? Here we go. There we go.
Okay, there we go.
Mikkel is invited.
Current world number 1, Mikkel, has been invited and has accepted. He is also winner of 2 tournaments, one of which pretty much was big enough to qualify it, despite his other worthwhile qualifications. Super happy to have Mikhail over, and I think he's a 99% yes. These are all 99% yeses. Obviously, not everybody can guarantee that they will be there on the day, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna see most of these players.
Yep. So Mikhail as number one spot, and rightly so, very good player, and watches obviously stream here. Well done, Mikhail. Hilo at number two. No surprise to anybody there. Winner of Always Winter GT. Spot going to him. Also did very well at last year's GT. It will be interesting to see him play something that might not be Othell, an event, because we'll have to see if Othell makes it there. But yeah, very good player. Tom, absolutely lovely guy.
Yeah. So Hilo, winner of a 44 player.
Yep.
Scottish GT. And also came second at the LGT last year. So I was super glad that he did earn himself a spot.
Mm-hmm.
And he's almost definitely going to be there.
Almost definitely. UK player. Drogon comes in at the third one on the list. Drogon is Ross Gardner, a Song of Ice and Fire noob, or words to that equivalent on the Discords. And he got in Carlo for...
We called it a wild card for his super impressive badge collection, which has gone a bit quiet, by the way. Not loads of badge movement. We'll see whether or not loads of people get new badges tomorrow. But his sterling work just for the site of submitting a result, winning a game with every single commander faction combination in the game. Obviously, this is the A Song of Ice and Fire Stats Invitational, which is here to celebrate the A Song of Ice and Fire community on stats in every possible way. So super happy to invite Ross, and I know he's super pumped to be there too. He's also a very high-rated player, which is unsurprising when you've played hundreds of games.
In case anyone wants to know how many games he's currently on, he's at 319.
In the past 9 months? Well,
give or take. So, moving on, we've got Lux, which is probably not really a surprise to anyone that this name has come up. Might be a bit of a surprise that, because he has been quiet as of late. But yeah, Carlo, why Lux?
Lux is, of course, the winner of what was effectively the prelude to this tournament, which was the A Song of Ice and Fire TTS Masters.
Yeah.
Back in 2020, it's about a year and a couple of months ago that it ran. Not only that, but he was long-time world number one dominant player. So super pleased that he has said yes and he will be there. Another big tick in the international box. We're currently talking Spain, England, and Germany represented. Let's see how many different countries we'll end up with.
Definitely. Stephen, waiting for Virtue? Yes, of course you can. You don't have to get a ticket for the Friday event if you're not playing, you can just come along and hang out if you're going to get there late or whatever. You don't need a ticket to come out and hang out. In fact, we encourage it. That if you can't...
with the small asterisk, which Elite Teddy has actually just put in, which is that we will allow it. Last year, the LGT allowed it. There didn't seem to be any specific ticket checking on the door to enter.
But I believe they've allowed observers, you can come in and watch for free. So that shouldn't be an issue on the Friday.
Should be fine.
Yeah. So that's Lux fulfilling in his Masters 2020 role. God, that was a long time ago. Masters 2020, which admittedly was a failing by us because we put it back to actually run in 2021. No, the Masters wasn't.
That was the World Cup.
Yeah, sorry, I forget. I apologise, Carlo.
No, the Masters did run in 2020.
The Masters did. All right, the next one on the list is a player that most people here probably haven't heard of, La Fuente. He is a...
Look at that ranking chart.
I know, right? He is a Spanish player who most people, again, won't know. He won the massive Clash of Regions event in Spain. This was the event that we kind of followed along every now and then, which started off, I want to say, back end of 2020, basically. and continued all the way through till
Yeah,
basically
they
mid
struggled
last year.
on through COVID problems, through various lockdowns. They really managed to plug away. It was very, very impressive that they managed to get to the end. Effectively, I think the final was a 32 player or maybe a 24 player. I don't know if you have the numbers in front of you of what size the event was.
I can find it out.
I might actually have it here.
I can find it out anyway.
Yeah. I don't see it. But he won a tournament of significant size called the Clash of Regions, I think that they called it, which is in a lot of ways their nationals.
It was 32 players.
32 players, but that was already 32 players who had all qualified from regional events. Yeah. So the total catchment, when you sum up all the tournaments, was easily a 100-person total participation in the 8 regional events, possibly 10 regional events. It was effectively like 10 regional events with about 10 players in each region. About 100 players, about a third of them managed to come and qualify for nationals. Then he took on that crazy Mance Free Folk Raider spam win all the way to the top, playing 100% Raiders, right?
Yeah, the
seven Raiders list.
3 NCUs.
7 Raiders. Entire insignificant. Yes, this is the kind of guy I want to see play at the Invitational.
I don't know if he actually ran
once again
that particular list in every game, but he did win it to the he did run that event against specifically Othell. Beating out Othell with it, which again is a theory point that you can do. Yeah, he ran it in every game by the looks of it.
What a guy.
God, you got to be... There's just something depressing about that. In my head, anyway. About why would you do that to yourself and why would you put anyone through that? Anyway, yes. Yeah.
And that's why Mickey has no cups and no invite.
Classic. I knew you'd get in there eventually with it. So... Yes, those are the current invited players, and that brings us to a grand total of 6 so far. 10 spots left to claim, but as we say, and there are a couple more invites still out in the post that are waiting to be picked up. Some people have declined already, right? We do know a couple of people have declined.
The invites went as far out as Van for his TTS win in Indonesia. He relatively quickly said thank you, but I won't be able to.
Yeah.
That's unsurprising. I believe Frerin has I forget what event he won. He won a TTS tabletop warden event with Baratheons, actually, if you remember.
Yes.
A 28-player TTS event. He's unfortunately not going to be able to make it for work reasons. But other than that, there are some other people invited. Whether or not they accept or not, we'll have to see. They're all possible maybes, mostly within short European international travel. There are some American invites out. Carl Gurney, winner of LVO, also got an invite. And that one's public. So, I won't name other people who have been invited in case they can't come. I don't want to disappoint them or other people or whatever. There are definitely a number of spots still available. If you're running an event of size, roughly the borderline is effectively like if you can get about 24 people, then it will probably be big enough that I will offer you, the winner, a place. Please get in contact if you think that you are running an event that big or whatever. Just quickly, it does have to be through a Song of Ice and Fire stats. On those other lines, I am going to put together at least one TTS event, which is a specific qualifier for the Invitational. The winner will get a spot. No matter how big it is, the winner will get one. The one person will get a spot out of it. It's probably going to be a knockout TTS event because what we're looking for is we're not looking for participation. We're looking for people to compete for that one spot. If that's something that interests you, then, keep your eye out for when that comes available. I'm hoping maybe it'd probably be around a 32 people entry. I hope that 32 people are after this spot. If it's really successful and we still have spaces to give out, we may run it again. I am also putting in the initial groundwork to put together a physical 24-player event, which would have a spot attached to it. Back to quite a while ago when we first started talking about it, Doug asked, are we eligible? I am the only person not eligible. Mickey can get a spot if he earns one. Leet Teddy, who, if you don't know, does more work than me for the LGT, he is eligible for the Invitational. So I hope that they both get a good opportunity to try and qualify, because they're both players that could and should earn a spot. But we'll see what happens.
I've got to win a tournament there first. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll definitely see. I know from my personal experience, I've been talking with Leet about it. I don't know, just from when I talked with Leet, I don't actually know if he wants to or not, because he was going to talk about something in relation to his qualifying spot that he would give out. So I'll talk with Carlo about that afterwards, or Chris might have already mentioned it to him. Because it might be good news for an avid listener of stats that we'll be able to mention next week, hopefully, which would be amazing. I would love to be in it, as I say, and I'm going to be going all out to try and get a spot. So
as things currently look, there will be the 16-player Invitational running alongside the ELO event. Don't worry, guys, the ELO event's only 3 rounds. It's much more laid-back affair, nowhere near as serious. They will run side by side at the same time. I'm expecting and hoping that we're talking 50, 60 people total across these 2 events by the time we get there on the day. Somebody's going to have to run that event, and that somebody is me. I put this together always with the intention that I would run it. So if you're hoping to play me at the Invitational, sorry, that will not happen for sure.
I'm sure, though, let's be brutally honest, anyone who's there over the weekend, there will be space and there will be time for Carlo to get casual games in, potentially. So if you know, I'm sure, right, when the Invitational's running, Carlo might be able to spare. He obviously won't be able to do all of his time on it, but he might be able to spare some time to play a game while also TOing. But obviously, it depends on how busy the day is and how ridiculous the Invitational and how difficult organisation is, because it is a pain in the ass. I won't be running the ELO if I qualify, Doug. That's the plan. In that I will run the ELO for Chris, so Chris can play in the ELO, because he probably won't be playing in the main event as usual. So I will run the ELO event for Chris, so he can play in it if I don't qualify. But I am looking to try and qualify, because I do believe that it is going to be the best opportunity to play against some of the best players. Some of the best players that I play against already quite a lot online. And it would be great to play against them in public, in person. Sorry, Jesus Christ. And
yeah, Doug's right. I only play for cash these days. I'm a cash prize player.
Actually, what we didn't. He'll be there
if
playing
you put
Flesh and Blood.
100 quid on the table, you've got a game.
Carlo will play cash prizes for Flesh and Blood, not Song of Ice and Fire. Anyway, there was one player we actually forgot, and we forgot because we'd already mentioned him. But we have got a fourth region. Sorry, we've got Germany, we've got Spain, we've got England, and we forgot about Poland. Sławek, the winner from last year. He is invited to the Invitational.
He is invited. Yes, it is been very publicly announced that he is invited.
Yes.
He's quite an elusive man. I have not yet received a response from Sławek.
Everyone knew he was invited. We still don't know if he's turning up.
I have also tried to get into contact with him through other people who are saying he's being quite elusive. So we can all hope that Sławek will be there. I would really love to see him.
I just want to meet him again.
In the Invitational. I'd love to see him in the main event again, see if he can do it again. And aside from just Sławek, I'd really love, we all know that I have a man crush on Bloodraven, but in general, I would love the Polish community to be at the LGT in a big way, because I know that they have a great, strong community. And I know that a number of them made it last time. I hope it's more this time. And I also hope that they are looking to run what is called Nationals this weekend. I hope that this ends up being a big enough event such that the winner of that is going to be offered a spot. I know that they run a lot of smaller events, really, really active in the game, really, really good small communities. I hope they're going to come together and send a lot of people over.
Mm-hmm. Elite Teddy says in chat there he's been confirmed by
Slavik says that he's coming. Okay,
yeah,
awesome.
We'll see.
Is Peter coming? I don't know. Peter was in chat earlier. I saw him post a comment and then delete it.
No, he's definitely in chat. We'll find out. Won't we? We'll find out in due course. So that's the LGT. Obviously, the hype for all that is still going on. Purchase tickets, all that kind of crap, all that, miserable stuff.
Do it. Buy tickets early as possible. The more you buy tickets, the more other people will be like, yes, this is amazing. I'm also going to buy tickets. The more the LGT as a whole, because don't forget, we don't actually run the LGT, obviously, the more they will help us, promote us, and make our event better based on how many tickets we've sold. Currently, their early initial sales, they seem pretty impressed by our early 50. Somebody ages ago asked, like right where the start when I said that we'd sold 50, asked like, how's it compared to Legion? I have no idea, but I know that we're doing pretty well. So far, this is going pretty well for us. If we can keep that up, if we can grow that as fast as possible, it will be big, amazing, and this can just become a real staple of the A Song of Ice and Fire calendar. And hopefully one day, maybe such that even like somebody else can run it and me and Elite Teddy can just play in it.
You'll be rubbish by then. Old man, you'll be on your way out. It's time for the new age to shine through. Big ups for Jacob of Glace. Right, yes. That is the end of all of the news and all of the crazy things that have gone on. We are 3 hours and 15 minutes, Carlo, in. If you're watching or listening to this on podcast, more on that now. You'll be thinking, Jesus Christ, this is a long one. And yes, we have finally decided, or I've finally decided, because I remembered how to do it. And when I say how to do it, I remember to do it. I knew how to do it all along. I'm just an idiot. We are going to be releasing this as a podcast. I'm going to be stripping the audio out and releasing it on some platforms. I haven't decided which ones, mainly because we know that a lot of our listeners actually can't watch the video for as long as it is. Data consumption is a big thing, obviously, and also people can't necessarily watch a video while driving or while cycling to work, as Big Man Duggars does. I think it's cycling or walking.
You going to cut out the first 6 minutes of dead time at the start where you were where we were both muted?
Of course not. Come on.
No, that's the kind of quality content people tune in for.
If you're listening to this podcast and you're 3 hours and 15 minutes in, and we only just told you that, and you're still here listening to the podcast, you're a good person. You've done well. So, yes, there are some tournaments actually being run. Should we talk about some tournaments, given that that's what Tourney Ground is for?
Yeah, we kind of moved on to that. Yeah, I think there was two smallish Polish events. Bolter run another event, and I forget. I think Svista got a win, and another name which I did recognize, but I've forgotten that now. Yeah, to Howard, that was the very first thing we did talk about. Belarus. We haven't talked about LVO. Are we going to talk about LVO? Why not? A little bit. Just a little bit. Oh, Mickey, you're muted. When you switch to tournaments, you muted yourself again. Mickey is, yeah, cool. For those who don't know, Mickey was just trying to get out of talking about LVO. He was just trying to tell me that we shouldn't, and he gave some excuse about the fact that his dinner was ready earlier. But I mean, we're only 3 hours 20 into it. So
I hate
come
my
on.
life. I actually hate my life. It's because I removed the input. I'm actually an idiot. Anyway, so LVO, we'll go through. Ignore everything else I said. It wasn't interesting. Hey, you don't even get a choice. You couldn't even hear it. So, LVO. It was won by Khal. Gurney Craig with his Drogo list. He basically exclusively played Drogo, I believe. He didn't play Mother of Dragons across the event. 5 rounds over 2 days, and he won it with Drogo with 2 NCUs. Obviously, well done for that. There was a whole discussion on whether or not Drogo versus Othell came about, which one was strongest, who would win. There weren't any Othell builds in the traditional sense, so everyone was kind of like certainly over in our pool park in the UK, we kind of went, yeah, Drogo, Mother of Dragons, probably in with a good shot. It's a player we know, and he's running good lists. Like, there's a chance he'll win. And we saw that exact thing happen. So obviously, congratulations to him for winning that event. But also, I think we have to give credit where credit is due to the other players who qualified.
Yeah.
And there is a specific one I do want to mention, and we've talked about him briefly before. But Carl Kirsten got 1 loss. He went 4-1 with Starks. It's another 4-1 good placement with Starks in an event of recent times, and the only other people who qualified were Targaryen or Night's Watch. Even number 5 was Wildcard Khal, Targaryens.
Yep.
There was some controversy. I say some controversy.
There was some interest. I'd call it interest.
Interest is the right word.
In the final game being a draw.
Yes. The final
game. Also, even before the other results came in, because this was the first result of the round that came in, I instantly said, whoever ends up 5th is going to be annoyed about that draw. And yeah, it turns out that Khal, Wildcard Khal, would have been 4th if Dakota loses the game. If Dakota loses, Wildcard Khal goes 4th, Wildcard Khal goes 4th, and Dakota drops down to probably like 7th or something like that.
Depends on the margin. It depends on the margin of win. If he loses by narrow, he would actually still take the slot. But if he loses by standard or crushing, he would drop to at least 5th, maybe even 6th.
Yeah. But Craig and Dakota played out it seems that they were both very happy to play out a relatively quick draw, which means that Craig guarantees a win and Dakota guarantees that 4th stock qualifier. So it'll be interesting. We were discussing about whether or not we will see that happen more now that we have another couple of events which have stated number of qualifying spots. If we will see people more accepting of a guaranteed position rather than playing for wins, we'll see if it rises. If you click over to the stats, though, I do think that it's interesting to see that Starks in general have done very well across the event.
Yep.
Khal isn't the only player running it. I think was it John Hurley?
John Hurley did well.
Long-time Stark player, I think.
Yeah.
Did pretty well. I think he came 3 and I think he went 3-2 over the 5 rounds. But absolutely, Carl Kirsten took a loss in the first round and then managed to recover really well with a 4-1. And I was really pleased that he got that qualifying spot because, to do it with Starks in a tough field, like there wasn't the cream of the crop Othell, but there was a lot of Targs and other Night's Watch builds in there. And he's the only one who managed to get his head just above the water and post that 4-1 result. If we get access to, I'd really be interested to know what factions, obviously people may play different factions come the US Nationals. I'd be very interested to look at the spread of what factions make the qualifying cut.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, obviously congratulations to those players. And I will mention about the draw. Draws happen. They do happen. They happen very legit. And, it could have been a very legit draw. It may not have been as legit a draw as they would have liked. They could have been very defensive and said, look, I'm not going to make a play. And if the other guy says, look, I'm not going to make a play either, I'm not going to blame them for playing that out. That's completely within their powers. There's nothing wrong with that. It is just it's always such a shame, in my opinion, that we never see decisive results. Decisive results are always something good to see, and I know that does mean that somebody loses out, and that sucks. But I don't. I think if if you're in a position where you're going to win the event anyway, take the draw. Why not? You don't need to risk losing. So I don't blame anyone involved.
There were some other interesting entrants. There's the two guys who set their club affiliation as Pokemon Masters.
Yeah.
Never particularly heard of those guys before. One of them, at least, particularly, I think Magikarp. He was running towards the top. Yeah, so he went 3 wins, 3 and 0. I don't know if that's on the first day or the first day and the first game of the second day. Running very hot. Didn't quite manage to finish it out. I'd be really interested to know anybody who played those guys how they were.
Craig and Khal. So I mean, 2 qualifiers. So nothing to be ashamed of.
No, absolutely. A couple of people never really heard of their community. Kind of wondered where they were from. But a pair of them definitely did pretty well.
You'll never guess who his teammate also lost 2 games to.
Would that be Craig and Khal?
Yeah. The 2 of them only lost to those 2 players. That sucks. That sucks actually for them. In a sense of like they beat everyone else there. There's a chance that they were probably better than their final standings actually predict. But because of the matchups and the way that it all comes out for them, they didn't get a shot at the top slots. And that just, that's the way it works.
Yeah.
But it's a shame that the pair of them who probably know each other did get knocked out by the same 2 people. If they'd have played more variety, it would have been good. But that is a bit of a shame for them, I think.
Sure, they'll feel hard done by.
They will.
But maybe, hopefully, we'll see them back for trying to qualify, because it looks like they're really in contention to qualify for spots at US Nationals. Maybe we'll see their names pop up again in the future,
especially with Lannisters and Starks. Not top contending factions necessarily. So that's LVO. Obviously, congratulations to everyone again. And yeah, we'll see how it all flashes out in the wash with US regionals.
Carl says that John Hurley's won the best painted army. Cool. So I think that the prize pool looked really, really brilliant. So it's a huge shout out to Carl for taking it on at the last minute and running the event. I'm sure Cmon are very, very pleased that he did, considering they clearly had big plans that they didn't tell him about, which involved it. Were it not for Khal, the event just would have been cancelled. And it's unfortunate that the original organizers couldn't run it in the end. But I believe that he's been very complimentary of the prizes that they managed to put together, the kind of things that they managed to do. There was a great prize pool. Very interesting. I think Cmon sent them large NCU cards. Personally, not actually a fan, but very interesting. If you want a one-off piece, then
you've misquoted it, Carlo. It's giant NCU cards.
Okay, giant, yeah.
As in giant NCU meme. Yeah, there you go. There's the prize haul that they were able to give away, which is great.
Yeah, it's really, really good haul. 22 people in the end. Obviously, LVO actually sold more, like double those tickets, but a lot of people had to pull out towards the end, myself included. Turns out that was the best decision I've ever made, because I had COVID and either would have been stuck in Vegas, unable to fly home, or would never have made it to Vegas and would have been stuck in Edinburgh. But yeah, that's. When I found out that I had COVID, it went from a regrettable decision to the best decision I've made since the start of COVID. So, yeah, that's just the way things are with Omicron-based travel. Hope that come the LGT, that it's not the same kind of issues. I hope it give it another 6 months. I committed to LVO because at the time it seemed like it was really going to be possible, and it really was going to be. Just if you're double vaccinated plus boosters, then all kind of travel restrictions are non-existent anymore, but they can come. So be careful, guys. And if you're traveling internationally, I do say consider the flexible ticket. I think it could, although that stated, we will help you move on your ticket if we can. Like lots of people couldn't make it last time, and we helped them reassign their ticket to somebody else. We actually did that for I think about 20 tickets last time. But yeah, anyway, LVO, amazing event. Unfortunate that some internationals, some Canadians, some people from further afield, a couple of Europeans, including Slavek, couldn't make it. Maybe some Europeans will make it over to obviously crush the US scene at some point soon.
Definitely, hopefully soon. We've got to keep throwing out those challenges, right? Until someone can actually go over and do it, which we really hope they do sooner rather than later. Because TTS is never quite the same, is it? Cool. Are we done? Are we finished?
The Canadian Open finished.
Oh, the Canadian Open finished. Yeah, Thranduil won the Canadian Open in his last game. Obviously, congratulations to Thranduil. I don't know what else to say about that. Just played well.
Go have a look. It was quite interesting. A few way weeks back, we postulated and talked about whether or not Thranduil's Night's Watch, as the only Night's Watch entry, would take it. Very strong field, very good set of players. Very interesting event to look at in an open kind of competitive environment. What will take the top spot?
Yeah.
Night's Watch, take it.
Night's Watch, take it. Yeah.
Doug says, are we going to mention the show match? I suppose.
I guess.
Lots of people discussing about whether or not Drogo has the matchup of Othell at the very end. And Brett was throwing out challenges, throwing out shade, throwing out absolute shade on the Discords. So thanks to my COVID-y state and the fact that I was locked at home, I took him on, took up that challenge. I don't think that I'm the best Othell player. I mean, I've only ever played him twice. But I was confident enough that I believe that Othell has that matchup won. I just think that he has that matchup won. And we played out, and it was very close at times. And I'm sure lots of people who watched believed that I was going to lose. But this is the actual. This is the way I see the game, and it's actually why I'm so adamant and why I took on the game. Is because my core belief is that the Night's Watch will always win in the end. And as the game dragged on, as the cards stacked up, what went from loads of people thinking that I'd lost the game turned into a crushing win for me. And that is why I believe that Night's Watch, people just don't quite credit how strong they are. For me, I took the match on in the end because I didn't want the narrative. Hopefully this patch is coming out in a week, 2 weeks time. I didn't want the narrative to be left, or the question to be left in some people's mind. Could Drogo have beaten Othell? Othell wasn't actually a problem. People just, it wasn't as big a deal as you say it was. No, I really do think it is a big deal. I do think that Othell has completely dominated the edition from day one to day last. From day one to day -1. Hopefully the new balance patch, that won't be true for anybody, not just Othell, but for anybody. Hopefully there won't be just one list build which dominates continuously throughout the whole thing, because hopefully we will see at least multiple list builds that vie against each other and are acceptable. That doesn't mean that Drogo couldn't beat Othell on his day, but I am convinced, my narrative, right or not, my narrative is that Othell, when played at its top level in a tournament, will win 80 to 90% of all his games.
Yeah.
And that means that you will win nearly every tournament that you enter if you can play Othell at a really extreme level.
I have to admit, I was talking with the likes of Richard Enline and Hilo during the game. Obviously Ariaka started it, he streamed it, and people were talking in chat there, but I was talking to them, and they were both like, "Oh God, it looks really bad for Carlo." And partially because I play with Carlo a lot, I was looking at the board state saying, "No, this is exactly what Carlo expects. This is exactly what it. Yes, it's going to look bad. He can't stop it looking bad, but that's not how the game plays out." And I think people forget. It's very easy to look at something and say, "Oh, the situation looks good or bad," but if you don't necessarily fully always understand just how powerful something is, you can recover some really god awful situations. And okay, I believe in Carlo as a player more so than the Othell list as well, in that I believe Carlo can rescue a bad situation as a player, but Othell has all the tools to do so. He wouldn't be playing that list in that way if he didn't believe that.
For me, as long as I have a unit of crossbows with a captain left, I can still win. Like, from no matter how bad the game is, if I've got one unit of crossbows with a captain left and it has the cards attached to them, then I can still win.
I will point out that not a lot of people know this, but it was on a Tourney Ground episode many, many, many moons ago in the TSL. Carlo played his first game against Ben Lim. Not Ben Lim, sorry. What's his name? Ben from
Ben from Blitz Minis.
Blitz Minis, yeah, Blitz Minis Ben. I can't remember his second name. Anyway, playing against Ben. That's a guy I used to play frisbee with, so no, it can't be him. So anyway, playing against Ben, and Carlo literally had a scorpion left at the end of the game with 1 wound, and he just didn't die. And as soon as this game went on and this happened, I kind of was like, it's gonna look shit, and he's gonna win it, and I know he's gonna win it, and I like infallibly, I don't believe he can lose this because I know that this is how he works games, and it's him as a player and the Othell list. He said it before.
Ben back then played brilliantly. I mean, I think Brett played brilliantly. I literally pretty much couldn't give you a point at which I'm like, Brett should definitely have done something different there. And I actually don't think that there's many people who could pilot that list better. But I am so adamant that Othell wins that I still just win the game. He can't do any better, and I still win.
Sad times. Absolute sad times. So, anyway, that was an event thing that happened. I think a lot of pressure was put on the game by a lot of people in the community, whereas I think it didn't need it.
Yeah. You know what it felt like to me. You know in the Matrix where Mouse runs in and he's like, Morpheus is fighting Neo, and they're all just like, oh my god, and everybody runs in to see what's going on. Like literally, it was like that. Like I was just sat there in the Sunday Slaughter Discord. Brett was there, and I was just like, I'll play you. And then just like instantly, I would just get messages like, when's the game? When's the game? Can I watch? Am I allowed to stream it? Can I watch it? I was like, okay. Oh, yeah, all right. And I was just like, somebody's going to lose in front of everybody, and I hope it's not me.
Not going to lie, I gave less than a shit about it because I was playing a game of Dota 2 when Ariakas did his thing where he's posting. It's like, oh, sod it. I'll run the stream on while I'm not really paying attention. And then by the end of the game, I was like, I should have just offered to stream this because enough people wanted to see this. I did not think it was going to be that bad.
There's a lot of people in the Discord.
I misread that one massively.
Belarius says that he's going to go back and watch the stream. Unfortunately, Ariakas had to drop out after about an hour and a half. Yeah. You get to see some really good, I honestly think, about as good opening play as the Targaryens can. I think if you're interested in how you can win the matchup, then the Targ opening is about as good as it gets. From then on, the bit that you miss is classic Night's Watch Turtle. And that's where things start to go a bit sad for the Targaryens. It looks bad at that point where the stream cuts out, but it steadily gets better continuously and goes away from him in the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was a very interesting game. And you know what? I did learn from it. I do think that the list performed better than I gave it credit for. I gave it no credit before the game. Now I give it some credit. I thought that he had no chance to win. Now I give him 10 to 20% chance to win if we played it again. So, you know, I always learn something when I play Brett, but for me, Othell's king. I don't care even that the stats say that MOD is more reliable. I would say at a certain level in the game, MOD will cause you more problems. Othell has to be played in a very specific style and a very specific list to be as powerful as he can be. But when he is played in that way, I just don't think anything beats it. The balance is coming in 1 to 2 weeks. Honestly, I believe it. Please, please, please don't leave us hanging. Please don't leave us in limbo. And I hope that that won't be true after that 1 to 2 weeks. I hope that at least there are things that can compete with it that make it a more interesting set of tournament kind of results where we don't, not everybody says it, but like we pretty much, we try not to harp on about it continuously, but we did at the start of the edition when it wasn't so clear that it's like, if somebody enters with a strong Othell, they win. And if they don't, that's when we see a different winner.
I mean, I'll leave it at that one, but obviously talk about the Invitational. It is not... Well, it is not a surprise that half of the people, if you look at the Invitational side of it, a lot of them playing Othell, like literally playing Othell. And it did get to the point where, obviously, considering, qualifying myself, and if it wasn't for the balance patch, there's likely to be an event in the UK that's not the one we run in Durham, but there's probably going to be another one in the UK that's equivalent sized. And I genuinely thought I might just take Othell to that tournament in the hopes of just getting the qualification that way, because I don't think it's possible for me to do it in other ways. And that's not a comment on the Invitational at all. That's a comment on the balance.
My comment on the Invitational would be that if it were run right now under this balance, I would bet real money, without even looking at the entrance, that Othell would win.
It would only be target Othell lists and maybe a free vote list. That would be it.
I wouldn't even need to look at the entrance, and I'd be willing to bet money that Othell would win. That's how dominant I believe him to be. That if people believe that other people are going to play top tier stuff, that if everybody thinks that they're going absolutely guns out blazing, then there is nothing beyond Targs and Othell right now. And I believe that Othell wins that reliably enough.
There's the gauntlet throw
with elite Teddy Troll. I think it's nearly 4 hours, and we better go, Mickey.
We do. I need to get away. Honestly, need to go. But elite Teddy Troll saying he'll beat with Joff in crossbows. I think we know how this works, elite Teddy. We have to start a Discord argument and throw down the gauntlet, and then Carlo will rise from the mist and offer you a challenge. And if you beat him, you beat him, and you were right all along. And when you lose, you can cry to somebody who cares, because it isn't anybody here or anyone on any other Discord, not with Joff crossbows. So
if that's the hill you're dying on, then I think you're dying on it alone.
All right then, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. I am going to rush off because I've got things to go sort out and do, and dinner to eat that's now probably stone cold. Thank you very much for tuning in. Carlo, any final last things you're going to say?
Thank you for sticking around for nearly 4 hours. 42 viewers. Once upon a time, we wouldn't ever get 42 viewers at our
1
busiest week. And these days, some of you will stick around for 4 hours to listen to us chat. So honestly, really, really pleased that that you guys turn up and you think that we're worth listening to. So thanks for that.
Also, actual congratulations to ones there. He was actually right. He put a bet on saying that the stream would be about 3.25 hours. We have control over this, but we obviously don't rig it or anything like that. We haven't got a fucking clue what we're doing. So yeah, well, for that once. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for listening. And if you're listening on the podcast, thank you very much for checking out on the podcast as well. And we will see you all next week. Enjoy your games. Take it easy.
Bye, guys.
Ready, aim, release! Anyone see my mammoth?